Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our very first Brooklyn Bus Network redesign meeting. We'll begin in about 10 minutes. Good evening. If you just arrived, welcome to the very first Brooklyn Bus Network redesign meeting. We will begin momentarily, and if you wish to speak tonight, please register. Please fill out the registration form. It is in the chat. I'll put it in the chat again. We will begin momentarily.
Hi, everyone. I'm really glad I could join with you today. Sorry.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, welcome once again to our very first.
I can hear you, buddy.
That's great. Thank you. So,
I
welcome.
hear you.
First, great. Thank you. All right. So, in case you just got here, and if you're watching the stream as well on YouTube, welcome to our very first Brooklyn redesign meeting by Passengers United. I'm Jack Nierenberg, and I'm the Vice President of Passengers United, and I'm also proud to serve as the moderator for this meeting. So before we begin, I'm just going to go over a couple housekeeping announcements. First of all, if it's not your turn to speak, please keep your microphone muted until we call on you. During the public comments session, if you are not registered to speak during the public comment session and you want to speak, you must register to be on the list to speak today. The link is in the chat. I'll put it in again. It's bit.ly/BB like Bravo NR Speak 1. Again, I'll put it in the chat and that will be displayed throughout the meeting. So without further ado, I will also go into just a brief overview of what the meeting will look like. You will hear from our panelists today after watching this short video. Among others, we have on our panel, we have the Honorable Alan Rosen, who served as the MTA New York City Transit Bus Planning Director. We also have Christopher Greif, an accessibility advocate, as well as, I'm not sure if Carl Pereira is here, but he's also on our panel. We have some members from the TWU, the Transit Work Local 100, if I'm not mistaken. So without further ado, here's the video.
The MTA has been redesigning bus routes in every borough to be streamlined, more reliable, and provide better service.
Faster travel, more reliable travel, better connections, ease of use. Those are the things that our customers care about the most.
We made sure to look at bus stops that were close to other bus stops and had the lowest ridership. So we were inconveniencing customers as little as possible and the fewest number of customers.
The Yorkers have the slowest buses in the country.
offers an unprecedented opportunity to improve bus service.
Just the sight of the bus usually means you're on your way.
Oh, it hasn't come by.
Now imagine you're waiting and the bus never comes, or when it does, it skips the stop.
Right now.
Where's the bus?
People who live in Mount Haven or on Willis Avenue that have to catch this bus, they walk down 143rd Street to get the bus here. Okay? MTA now wants us to walk 6 blocks to 149th Street to get on the bus. These are really long blocks.
What's happening is we're inconveniencing a population in the community that really relies on this bus. The accessibility wasn't part of the plan. We have a lot of seniors in our community that if they were included in this plan and they were engaged in the plan, they would have known that this wasn't the bus stop to take away.
This bus stop is still not been restored by the MTA. We're trying to get this bus stop reinstated. So,
can you see seniors with walkers and wheelchairs or anybody standing there waiting for a bus?
But now the bus is back.
That goes to show how when we work together, we get things done. We got our bus stop back.
It also should be a lesson to any city agency or any organization that wants to do something in our community or make any changes to come and talk to the people directly.
The next redesign is in Queens.
Look at the map. It's not there anymore.
They are planning to take away our Q41 bus and curtail our Q11 bus and not replace them with anything.
These are double fare zones. These are communities that are outliers. I know that I'm affected in College Point where I live. I'm also affected where I go to work in Jamaica.
How are they going to get to school? How are the elderly going to get to work or get to the programs that they so desperately need?
senior citizens and people with disabilities should not lose their bus stops. That's our primary concern.
They're proposing eliminating Newport Avenue service in Rockaway over the last 4 years. They proposed it 3 different times. And each time the community said, we don't want it, and they're still proposing it.
We would have to transfer several times, pay more fares, and it would just double the trip.
We need more buses, not less buses, and we need to be able to have access.
Each and every one of us need to make our voices heard.
Without further ado, I now present to you the president of Passengers United, Charlton D'Souza.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can all of you see me?
Yes, we can.
I can see you. Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Passengers United, and I just want to say to Jack Nienberg, thank you so much for putting the video together, for putting this entire Zoom stream together. I am just honored. And I just want to thank all of you tonight for coming out on this Thursday night to join with us. You just saw that video. And I was in the Bronx. And I can tell you the devastation that I saw with those senior citizens when they lost that bus stop and the Patterson houses was devastating. So why does this matter to the Brooklyn bus redesign? It's because they want to eliminate the bus stops. And Alan Rosen is going to discuss this later on, so I don't want to get too much into it. But what I need everyone to understand in the community is I need all of you to contact the elected officials, to send them emails, to call your community boards. And also there are organizations out there like the one that you saw in the video just now with the mayor. She was wearing a green shirt and they're saying everything is okay. And they support the MTA with these bus redesigns. So the bus drivers are coming to me. I have union leaders coming to me. I have passengers who are about to lose the express bus service on the Brooklyn bus routes. Weekend service is gone. How is this a bus redesign? It's not. When you're cutting weekend service, you're cutting local buses, you're cutting bus stops, and then you're making people take 2 or 3 transfers. This is not a bus redesign. So I want all of you to understand there's a lot of money being pumped in by organizations like Riders Alliance, Transportation Alternatives, and all these other organizations. And the best part is they never attend MTA Board of Committee meetings. I know that my team and we attend all the meetings. We're there. We communicate with MTA management. I just need all of you to understand what's at stake here. So all of us in Queens, the Bronx, Staten Island, which was messed up with the express bus redesign, we all need to come together and help our friends and neighbors in Brooklyn. That's why we're here. It's all about unity. We love Brooklyn. We love New York City. We're all here to help together and to fight together. So I don't want to talk too much. I just want to take it away, and I'll talk later on, and I might jump in from time to time. So why don't we just introduce the moderators?
All right, thank you, Charlton. Up next, we will be hearing from our panelists, starting with Alan Rosen.
The Brooklyn bus network redesign will hurt more people than it will help. Recommendations are based on erroneous assumptions and will not further the goals and objectives. Many recommendations are bad, which will result in further ridership declines. There are many missed opportunities to improve service. First, the MTA claims to improve interborough travel, but doesn't do so. A new route is proposed from central Brooklyn to JFK, but it's at the expense of severing an existing connection from northern Brooklyn, the B15. A new route connecting Sheepshead Bay Station to the Rockaways could cut travel times by 2/3, from 90 minutes to 30 minutes, but it's not proposed. The objectives to straighten routes where possible, thereby improving connections, is not met. Routes are only straightened where less service can be provided. The proposal to reroute the B16 to 60th Street was rejected twice by the community. Both times they countered with straightening the B16 along Fort Avalon Parkway to pass Maimonides Hospital, which presently requires a long walk or transfer and makes the walk even longer. Many routes are not straightened and many service gaps are not filled. An east-west service gap in Park Slope, Cobble Hill, and a north-south gap in East New York are worsened by the plan. They are not reinstituting the B71 and extending it to Manhattan as previously proposed, although ridership increased by over 29% in the previous 5 years before it was eliminated in 2010. The southern terminals of the B49 and B68 are flipped. A direct 10-minute trip between Manhattan Beach and Sheepshead Bay will become a 2-bus 30-minute trip, or maybe even a 45-minute trip. The B44 SBS should terminate at Kingsborough Community College. Although the existing additions report shows that Brooklyn, especially downtown Brooklyn, is growing, there are no investments to fill service gaps, and overall service is reduced. There is no mention of school and summer service. It is crucial that the MTA listen, hold face-to-face discussions, and properly respond to criticisms of the network redesign. In conclusion, a Brooklyn bus network should be comprehensive and expand and improve service for a growing borough. Instead of investing in services, the MTA is merely filling a few service gaps, flipping route links, severing vital connections, and reducing service. A redesign should not be an excuse to cut service.
Thank you. Up next, before we get to Christopher Greif, we want to hear from Alexander from TWU.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, how are you? Good evening. I think it's very important that these panels are had and that the conversations are being represented well before these changes are implemented. Reason being because I saw in the video the highlights of the catastrophes in other boroughs, as we understand what happened in Staten Island and how they haven't even been able to fully implement it because of poor planning. The reality of the Bronx, by compromising specific demographics and picking and choosing who they were going to serve and who they weren't going to serve, became the unfortunate reality for many people by Co-op City. and now they have to go back and spend extra money to accommodate the equity of the borough. As we look at other redesigns, especially the Brooklyn redesign, it's quite clear to us, as we've argued from labor, that equity has to be paramount and represented in every community has to have the benefit of what a redesign is intended to serve. Faster service for select few does not mean a better system for all the New Yorkers, or especially Brooklynites, in this Brooklyn redesign. I understand the premise is to push more people to the trains, in essence, giving you a shorter route to get you on a train when many people in Brooklyn have transit deserts, and having someone having to walk from a specific community to get 7-8 blocks to a bus just to get them to a train and add an extra half hour to their daily commute, where other neighborhoods are getting shorter bus rides. And in essence, there is a belief from our perspective that there could be a concern of redlining and giving equity to certain neighborhoods and causing very severe rider issues to specific neighborhoods. If you look at East New York, if you look at Canarsie, if you look at certain areas of Brownsville, they are getting left out in this bus redesign, where neighborhoods like Park Slope, Bay Ridge, Dyker Heights get more connections and better service, and Brownsville, East New York, and Canarsie get limited service, more wait times, and less service on the weekends.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the short notice. Up next, we will hear from Christopher Greif.
Good evening, everyone. As Christopher T. Greif, I'm glad TW joined us. One thing I'm going to mention that part of the redesign, it's a draft. We all know it's a draft, and we need to make sure our opinions, our comments are going in to this. But one very important thing, MTA does not do this alone. DOT has to be also know where the bus stops are going to be, where if you're moving a bus stop, you need to check the facts of is there a senior center, a day have program for people with disabilities, and hospitals, clinics, in major shopping areas. But very important, seniors and people with disabilities who live in those homes or big apartment buildings need it as well. So as I encourage everyone today, please put your comments into the MyMTA website. Please make sure you put it with the accessibility DOT. So therefore, we all are advocating for a better bus service in the borough of Brooklyn. As you saw today in the Bronx with not communicating with them, as Charlton Dasudas has said, we need to make sure that community boards, our elected officials need to know this, and they need to hear not from one person, everyone. Everyone must work together in making clear that we have a better service, safety, and making sure we can get on and off the bus stops, and make sure that bus stops and shelters are there for everyone. That's including seniors and people with disabilities. So please make sure you know your bus stop is being discontinued or removed. Please let MTA know, let DOT know, and your community know. It is the very important thing. We need to do that now. Because in 2019, a lot of people did not attend, and we need everyone's attention on this. This is draft number 1. I hope to see everyone. Please attend those virtuals. If you can't, put your comments in. Please, let's do our part. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, in just a moment, we will be showing you all how to do that online. Up next, we will hear from Carl Pereira.
Hi, I'm Carl Pereira, transportation advocate. I'm also a transportation chairperson for the Our Neighbors Civic Association in Ozone Park. What I did when the Queens redesign was, I'm going to follow up a little bit on Alan Rose and Chris's comments regarding the bus stop eliminations. What I did with the Q8 route is I went through the entire route, and what I did was I looked at where all the stops that they were eliminating, and I used a Google map. Now, I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the Google map, but there's an icon on that map with a little man. If you drag the man to the street, you could get a visual presentation of what the street looks like, where the bus stop is, where there's shelters. You can get a lot of information from that. And I think if everybody that's looking at the redesign wants us to look at where they're, even their own bus stops, because when you go back home, you may forget certain things that's out in the street. So, I realize that some stops they're eliminating, there's a traffic light there where the bus is already stopping at the stop. And so in some cases, they took out Woodhaven Boulevard. They, in one direction, they have the bus stopping at 94th Street. In the other direction, they had it stopping at Woodhaven Boulevard. But the people would still have to cross a large intersection to transfer to the southbound Q52 and 53 buses. So all these issues I had brought up to them on the interactive map. When the Brooklyn redesign was issued, none of the recommendations were taken because the Q8 goes into both boroughs. So I saw it. So hopefully, when the Queens redesign final plan is released again, that they reinstate a lot of those bus stops that I had suggested. And if not, then my next step will be to write to the elected officials. But I'm doing this on behalf of the Civic Association Ozone Park. So I went through the entire Q8 route. And I think everybody, you use that Google map and that tool, like I say, you just drag the little man to the area. You can see a perfect bird's eye view of the area, making any bus stops you want to get a clear picture. Another thing I think they need to do is regarding transfers. Right now they only allow one transfer between a bus and a subway or a bus to a bus. And there's a lot of cases where sometimes you need two transfers, especially with these redesigns. There's so many issues. And sometimes you need to take a bus to a subway. Then when you get out in, say you get out in Manhattan, you need to take another bus. So there's a lot of issues. And me and Alan Rosen have been pushing for a time-based transfer policy where people would get unlimited transfers for up to 2 hours or 2.5 hours. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. So before we get into the public comment session, I'm just going to show you briefly how you can submit a comment online. So if you search for the Brooklyn Bus Network Redesign MTA website, here it is. You're not seeing it now, but there it is. So this is the website for the Brooklyn Bus Network Redesign. It's under MTA projects if you're going from that direction, but you can search for it on any web browser like Google or any of the other ones. You just type in Brooklyn Bus Network Redesign, this will come up. And if you scroll down, you'll find more information. You can learn more about exactly what's going on there. They will have public meetings. These will all be virtual, as was stated. This will all go into the chat. Yes, it will. So this is all useful information that you can actually attend these virtual meetings. And then on the bottom, there are some links that you can actually view the draft plan as a PDF with both with and without the route profiles. The route profiles are pretty much stating like what exactly is going on with each particular route. And you can also access that by clicking on this button over here, so you don't have to scroll down the whole PDF. And this will take you to this page right here, so you can click on each route, more particularly the ones that would be affecting you as well, if it does. So you just click on that button right there. You can go back here. And then at the end, here's how to submit a comment. I know this was a big question. Here's how do you submit a comment to the MTA? Here you go. You click on this button right here and you just fill out the online form, which is going to come up right about now. It's coming. It's coming.
Okay.
But here it is. You on any other oh, here it is. I was about to say on any other computer it would show up, but here it is. This would be the form that you would be filling out to submit a comment to the MTA. So all of this will be going into the chat, and all of this is available right now on our website. This is temporary on our website, but this is all the information. All these hot links are right here as well. So everything will be available in the chat additionally. So without further ado, we are going to begin our public comment session. First of all, if you did not read the rules of conduct and decorum, here they are. This is especially important. So please familiarize yourselves with the rules of conduct and decorum. These are pretty much common sense. Everyone will be getting 2 minutes to speak. Please note that at 30 seconds, you will hear a warning chime. So that's not your time expiring. That's just a warning chime. You will hear another chime when your time expires. So without further ado, our first speaker will be Pam Glansman, followed by Angela Pizzino.
Good evening. Can you hear me, please?
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for letting me speak. First, I want to say that the revised bus map is particularly confusing, and I'm sure it's confusing on purpose. It took me a long time to realize that the B36, which runs in Sheepshead Bay, where I live, is terminated at Coney Island Hospital. I understand that there are other buses you can get there, but there's not a train there. And it's not convenient. It's inconvenient for the high school students that go to Lincoln High School, and there's a middle school there as well. It's also not convenient to halt this bus line as it goes all the way out to Coney Island, including the Brooklyn Cyclone Stadium. And there are many senior citizens that take the bus. You have to remember that eliminating bus stops or truncating bus lines to trains don't help senior citizens or people who are disabled when trains are not accessible.
Can I just chime in for 1 second?
Sure, if I get my time back.
The B36 is not terminating at Coney Island Hospital. It's the B44 SBS.
Yeah, Alan, we're gonna let the speaker speak, and then we'll do it that way. Otherwise, it's gonna mess up the sequence. Sorry about that.
Okay, I read that map really well. Okay, the B44 it runs on Nostrand Avenue. Okay, so I'm sorry, you don't have that information correctly. The other line I want to speak about is the B49. So the B49 runs between Kingsborough Community College. It used to run all the way up, I believe, to Williamsburg or Franklin and Fulton or something like that. Now at Foster, instead of going up Bedford, okay, it's going up Nostrand. It does not, your change does not make the line quicker. It makes the line longer by 20 minutes. Right now, that bus is supposed to run every 10 minutes. Okay, and I've had to wait a half an hour and 40 minutes for that bus. Please put the bus back where it is because it's already too long a line. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a reminder to all our public speakers, your time is limited to 2 minutes. If you do have any additional comments that you are not able to communicate in your 2 minutes, you are more than free to put those in writing. And I just want to clarify that we will be having a live Q&A after the public comment session, but to keep this running smoothly and actually get to that more quickly, we will be enforcing this time limit. So
Jack, excuse me. This is Cassie speaking. I'm hearing a lot of background noise while the public speaking session is happening right now. Can you kindly remind people to keep their mics closed? Thank you. I'm sorry, Jack.
Of course, just as another reminder, please keep your microphones muted until it is your turn to speak. Up next, we will have Angela Pizzino, followed by Cassandra Fucci. I'm sorry, I might have pronounced that wrong. Please excuse me if I do pronounce your name wrong. Our next speaker is Angela Pizzino. Going once. Okay, Angela is not here right now. The next speaker will be Cassandra Rafucci.
I'm actually not speaking.
Oh, you're not?
I never signed up to speak, Jack.
All right, that is really strange.
Yeah, I never signed up. Charlton asked me this afternoon when he texted me, and I said no, I was not speaking.
All right, that's strange. Okay, then up next we have Andy Pollock, followed by Tom Colicchio. Andy, are you there?
Was I called?
Yes, you were.
Okay, I'm having a little bit of a connection issue, so please stand by. I'm having technical difficulties.
Do you want us to come back to you?
Okay, I think I might have fixed. Okay.
All right,
Can anybody hear me?
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Okay, good. Almost there. Just get it set up. All right, so good evening, everyone. Andy Pollock here. I am a member of Passengers United. So, oh, nobody can hear me?
I hear you loud and clear, Andy.
Loud and clear.
Me too.
I can't hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay, how about now?
Yes.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, I hear
Loud
you.
and clear.
Okay, let's start all over again. Okay, sorry about that. My internet's being really bad tonight. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Pollock. I'm a member of Passengers United. So I am on here.
Can we just go to the next speaker? Thank you.
All right, then we'll come back to you. Our next speaker will be Tom Colicchio, followed by Alan Rosen.
Jack, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. What makes New York City a livable city for so many people is a public transportation system. And yes, we want a public transportation system that is fast, clean, efficient, but also one that works for everyone. I'm in the restaurant industry. I own 3 restaurants in Manhattan. I have about 250 employees. About 90% of them live outside of New York's of Manhattan. They rely on buses and public transportation to get to and from work. They work on nights, they work on weekends, and cutting the services back, getting rid of some express buses, getting rid of express buses, and eliminating stops, especially during the weekends, and especially late at night, is actually going to create a public health issue for so many of my employees. Late at night, if they have to walk 12 blocks as opposed to 4 blocks, it's more time out on the street late night, and it becomes quite dangerous. A lot of my employees are working 8 to 10 hours a day. They don't need an additional hour's worth of commute, especially when they're going home after working a long shift and after being tired. I just have 3 restaurants representing about 250 employees. If you bring it out to the entire restaurant community, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of employees that will be infected by this, that will have additional commute times and actually create a danger if there's not additional stops. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak, Jack. And that's all. Thanks.
And thank you so much. We actually want to add night owl bus service. And that is something we are working on with the MTA, night owl bus service. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. And thank you so much once again for everything you've done to promote this meeting. Up next, we have Alan Rosen, followed by Isaac Sorden.
Since I already made my opening remarks, I'm going to forego these 2 minutes. I just want to correct something that was said before. The B36 is unchanged. It will not be terminating at Coney Island Hospital. The only thing that might be changing are bus stops. The bus route that'll be terminating at Coney Island Hospital is the B44 SBS, which is a bad idea because what it's going to do is going to siphon riders from the B36 to the B44 SBS. So there'll be future service cuts on the B36. And moving the B44 SBS to Coney Island Hospital will also deprive access to workers at the many nursing homes on Emmons Avenue who are presently coming from Crown Heights. Now they'll have to take the slower local. So it'll be an inconvenience for them also.
Thank you. Up next, we have Isaac Sorden, followed by Yuki Endo.
I don't have no comment, but I would like to listen to everybody else's.
Okay, thank you. Up next, we have Yuki Endo, and I believe that he sent us something in writing. So I'm just going to read that for everyone. My name is Yuki Endo, resident of Jackson Heights, and I'll be affected by MTA's Brooklyn Bus Network redesign, as well as the Queens Bus Network redesign. I depend on the B3, B4, B24, B25, B26, B35. You all can hear me, right? Yes, B36, yes. B37.
Loud and clear, Jack.
B43, B44 select bus service, B46. The list goes on. He says, I don't support the idea of the B15 bus being eliminated between East New York and Jamaica and JFK Airport, but agrees with the B55 select bus service, which should use Ralph Avenue and Atlantic Avenue to serve Kingston Throop Avenues and Marcus Garvey Boulevard to Woodhull Hospital. I don't support the elimination of the B46 local between Woodhull Hospital and Williamsburg, since lots of the former B46 Limited passengers are already upset because the select bus service does not serve Williamsburg. He also does not support the B103 being discontinued between downtown Brooklyn and Brooklyn College because the bus has always high ridership and is faster than the B41 because the buses use Prospect Expressway. He does agree with the B41 Limited and Q35 becoming select bus service, but does not agree that the Q35 should be rerouted in Roxbury and Neponset. He also does not support the elimination of the B24 and Q100, Q101, and Q102 because it will be combined to the Q105 under the Queens Bus redesign and Steinway Street, which will be replaced by the new Q68, which replaces the B24 Kingland Avenue portion via Meeker Avenue to the Williamsburg Bridge, while the new B53 replaces the Greenpoint Avenue portion of the B24, B32, and B46 along Broadway. He also doesn't agree with the Q8 being rerouted to and from Gateway Center in Spring Creek because of the high ridership. From the New Lots Avenue 3 train station, he believes it should go up and down Van Sicklin Avenue to Linden Boulevard for Gateway Center so the Q8 can still continue and provide service from Gateway Center. He also does agree with the B62 Limited being extended to Astoria, but has a problem with but raises the problem with illegal parked cars on narrow Bedford Driggs Avenues and will not serve Queensboro Plaza subway stations. But the subway connection will be made at Court Square in the F train 21st Street, but may not work since it parallels the East River Ferry. He also does not agree with the Q58 local being relocated via Roosevelt Avenue, while the Q98 select bus service replaces the Q58 Limited, but will remain on College Point Boulevard, but will not serve Corona Avenue. Sort of agrees with the Q98 select bus service, but needs to stop at Horace Harding and Junction Boulevard and Queens Center Mall before the Q98 select bus service resumes the current Q58 Limited route at Grand Avenue and Queens Boulevard. He also does not agree with the BM1 through BM4's elimination of the City Hall Loop, major stops in the financial district, does support the relabeling of the X37 and X38 to the BM37, BM38. Does not support the change of the X27, X28 though. Also does not support the elimination of weekend service on the X27, X28, and Saturday service on the current BM1 through BM4. He also agrees that the BM3 needs to run on Sundays since Chief's Head Bay is a major attraction. He also does not agree with the B43 change in Greenpoint, but does agree with the B57 extension to Jackson Heights, but it should extend to Northern Boulevards and 82nd Street because there's no place to layover. And
2
also,
minutes.
yes, I do. Everything will be available in writing. I can make this available as well. Up next, we have David Kupferberg, followed by Ethel Tyus.
Hi. Well, luckily for the MTA and NYC DOT, I analyzed. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Luckily for the MTA and NYC DOT, I analyzed each and every bus stop within Brooklyn on a case-by-case basis. I have them on spreadsheets in a separate file. I make a similar conclusion as I did with the Queens Bus Network redesign draft plan. 95% of the stops in Brooklyn are good exactly where they are. The service planners should be allowed to use Google Maps, Google Earth, and other similar tech platforms. If they were, some ideas would not have been proposed and others not rejected. The B4 should continue to serve Coney Island Hospital and Abraham Lincoln High School. Hence, the B64 should continue to operate via Hallway Avenue, Stillwell Avenue, the B82 local Cropsey Avenue, and the B6 Shore Parkway. One of the objectives of any bus network redesign is to close service gaps, not create them. The claim that bus service via 65th Street would duplicate the B9 at 60th Street and the N train at 62nd Street is rubbish. Although there is plenty of capacity in the N train generally serves Manhattan riders. Linking the existing B2 with the Bay Ridge Avenue segment of the B64 would be a boon for the surrounding neighborhoods, like the Q51 would be for Southern Queens. Besides, if the claim that there are duplicative services in Manhattan is valid, most of their north-south services would have to discontinue. A new service should be provided. The B64 is still long and circuitous. It should be streamlined. As that 13th Avenue, 14th Avenue service must be maintained, a new service would also have to be provided. Making the eastern terminus of the B16 at Clarkson Avenue, Utica Avenue is foolish, as that there is nowhere in this area to effectively turn buses. It should operate to the Sutter Avenue, Rutland Road station. Originally, back in the day, all B17 trips operated via Rockaway Parkway subway station as a feeder. One last comment, the B25 has the second highest ridership in Brooklyn between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. Curtailing it overnight B25 service depends on where it's most crowded. If it should be at or near Brooklyn, such a change would be wishful thinking. It should not be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Ethel Tyus, followed by Evan Gold.
Thank you. This is Ethel Tyus speaking for the Sterling Place Civic Association. I'm also a member of the Crown Heights Neighborhood Association. I want to point out that the planned reroute of the B45 westbound cannot work going along Sterling Place from New York Avenue to Rogers Avenue, mainly because there is a kidney dialysis center on Sterling Place between Nostrand and Rogers Avenue with ambulettes discharging kidney dialysis patients regularly and blocking that transit. The complaint or the excuse that I understand for rerouting the B45 from St. John's Place between Nostrand and Rogers is that the St. John's is narrow. St. John's Place is narrow between Nostrand and Rogers. The solution that I can offer or suggest today is to consider not having parking on both sides of St. John's between Nostrand and Rogers, during the daytime. Maybe that will solve it, but definitely not running the B45 along Sterling Place between New York Avenue and Rogers Avenue is not going to work, mainly because of the kidney dialysis center on Sterling Place between Nelson and Rogers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Evan Gold, followed by George Coffer. Evan, are you there? Looks like Evan is not here, so our next speaker will be George Coffer. Looks like George is not here either. Just a reminder, if you do wish to speak, you must register in advance. Actually, you can still register. The registration is open. The link is on your screen. It is bit.ly/BBNR-Speak1. Once again, if you want to speak tonight, you must register. Our next speaker will be Ches Rizzo. No Ches tonight.
Excuse me, Jack. Somebody is drawing on your screen. I don't, there's a drawing yellow on the side. Thank you.
Yes, okay, it's off.
Wait. I think we fixed it.
All clear. We're good.
All right, Ches here.
Can I make a suggestion? When you see your name on that list, if you can raise your hands so we know who's here actively, because some people are stepping out and that's probably what's happening. Those of you who we missed, we'll get back to you later in the queue.
Take attendance.
Got that right. Okay, our next speaker will be Ken Marable, followed by Donna L.
Nobody here.
No Ken? Okay, in that case, our next speaker will be Donna L. Donna, are you here? Donna is here. Can you please unmute?
Yeah, there is a Donna present, but the mic is closed. But I don't know which Donna it is. There's one Donna on the screen in the attendance list. She's having some technical difficulties with the mute, Jack.
All right, we'll get back to her. Our next speaker
Hold
is
on.
Celeste.
Donna, can you hit, if you go to the top, Donna, where it says mute, you just hit that mute button to unmute. Okay, I'm sorry, Donna. I guess she can't come in. Okay, sorry about that. We'll try to get to you later.
Johnson, I can speak now, if that's okay.
All right, if you want to speak now, go right ahead.
Yes, I'm finally fixed my internet, so let's try this again. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Pollock, and I am a member of Passengers United. So the reason why I am on here it seems we are seeing deja vu in Brooklyn. What do I mean by deja vu? I'm looking at the plan, and the main takeaway is, just like Queens, they're planning to eliminate bus stops. What is the MTA's fascination with eliminating bus stops? I clearly cannot understand that. They did that in the Bronx. They put that in the final plan. It was never mentioned in any of the drafts. Queens, they're doing the same. And now in Brooklyn, here we go again. It's just, I don't understand it. And I feel so bad for senior citizens, people with wheelchairs. It's really unfair to them that now they're going to have a longer journey, to put it in the correct word I'm going to say here, to get to a bus stop. How is that acceptable? That's clearly a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act right there. And I'm speaking up for the voiceless, the people who are in wheelchairs, the people who can't speak tonight. They need to have an easier way to get from point A to point B. So what I'm saying is, whoever can advocate for the disabled, contact your elected officials, contact the DOT, let them know that the MTA is planning to violate the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we all have to come together in Queens, in the Bronx, because Manhattan's bus redesign is next. I know it's coming in Manhattan. I've heard through the grapevine it's coming. So this is the time to advocate for the disabled. So I'm going to conclude my remarks. Thank you all for letting me speak this evening.
And let's not forget about Brooklyn. Brooklyn's
Yes.
very, very important. That's why we're here tonight.
Yes, especially because there are a lot of senior citizens who do live in Brooklyn who do rely on the buses.
All right, thank you. Up next, we have Samuel, followed by David Kahn.
Hello, this is Samuel. You hear me, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, let's just go to get right to it. Born and raised in Brooklyn, and basically I've read through the redesign. What I do not like, basically it's affecting a lot of the routes, and especially the downtown Brooklyn routes. Basically almost every route around there, one way or another, getting rerouted or stop eliminated. I do not like the B25. Basically getting shortened to Franklin Avenue for the late night. For that standpoint, there's ridership on the B25. During the overnight, I do not approve on the B38. Not going to Metro anymore. And as an effect, using limited service, even though all the buses go to Catawba and Ridgewood, but all of them will be local. There will not be no limited. The 26 have a rush night bus line basically skips a lot of stops within the Fort Greene, Clinton Hill community outside of a very few stops. And then for that standpoint, I do not approve on that. And it should be one seat wide for
We've
Samuel,
lost audio.
You're muted. Samuel, you just muted. Can you please unmute?
I don't think you can hear anybody.
Oh, you hear me now?
Yes.
Now we can hear you. Awesome.
Oh, wow. Then okay. Basically, I do not like the downtown routes being changed. The 38 should stay limited. For that standpoint, the B25 overnight service should not get cut to Franklin. The B103, they should leave it alone for that standpoint. And one seat-wide service for Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, Brownsville residents. The B15 should still just go to the airport, leave that alone, and I support the new route for the going to the airport. I believe it's the B55 SBS. But that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have David Kahn, followed by Maria Roca.
Hi, everyone. My name is David Kahn. I am personally a Brooklyn resident. I'm also the Infrastructure and Environmental Justice Organizer for the Office of the New York City Public Advocate, Jumaane Williams. Our office, we just want to let you know, is unique in that we are a government office with a dedicated community engagement unit built to respond to and organize with nonprofit advocacy groups and community groups to make sure that New Yorkers are heard. We provide oversight for city agencies and our main mission is to hold those in power accountable. And we have long been fighting for New Yorkers when it comes to transit. So this is to say, we are another avenue for you to go through to express any complaints or comments you might have about the upcoming redesign. I'm also here because we want to be here to listen to you. We're taking notes. We need to have a just and equitable transit system for all New Yorkers, one that reflects how strap hangers travel and where they travel in the 21st century, to close service gaps and to fill transit deserts. We also want to make sure this redesign does as much as possible to eliminate congestion on the streets of New York and make sure that the redesign will be accessible, that it won't impact bike lanes, and that business owners who need their goods delivered to them to be able to operate are happy as well. So please reach out to us for your concerns and complaints by going to advocate.nyc.gov/contact and voice your concern either by filling out the form or by making a call. Thank you.
And thank you so much. I'm the president of Passengers United. We definitely will be in touch with your office. And if you could put your contact information, if you could DM it to us, we'll definitely be in touch with you. We need night owl bus service.
Yeah. Okay.
And also
definitely.
the express buses. It's a very big concern. The loss of express buses and bus stop losses. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Maria Roca, followed by Jason Anthony.
Okay, am I on?
Yes, you are.
This is okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm gonna get right to the point. Everyone that I've heard speak has the same concern, particularly for those who are elderly and those who are mobility challenged. And I'll add young families. I don't know if somebody else had mentioned that, with children and folding strollers. And this is an urban center extraordinaire. Nobody should have to rely necessarily on a car, even though it's nice, but who can find parking for cars anyway? So we're being told not to buy cars. And the three groups that I mentioned are not necessarily able to get on a bike and go everywhere as some people may think. So I will speak initially about the B63, B as in boy 63, that runs along mostly Fifth Avenue and then turns at Flatbush and then goes down to the end of Atlantic Avenue. The part that is the most...
Hold on 1 second. I'm so sorry. Can everyone please mute? Thank you. It's very disrespectful when someone's speaking and people are talking in the background. Please mute your microphones. Thank you.
Thank you for that courtesy. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's go back to the B63. And for those who are not familiar, that's Southwest Brooklyn. And for those in Sunset Park, it's a lifeline, both the B63 and the B35 moving north, south-north, and the multiple lines that cross Fifth Avenue to go either to hospitals, to go to college. So we are well served by bus lines, but there is a serious problem with, and this is an issue where the DOT, the MTA, and the police department have to work together. They have to talk to each other. And that is the blocking of our bus stops, particularly B63, anytime from 39th Street all the way to about 86th Street. It is unusual to find a bus stop that is not blocked by cars or trucks or electric bicycles or scooters or whatever. This means that people getting
Please
off the
conclude your
bus.
remarks.
I'm sorry?
Jack, give her a few seconds.
Okay,
Thank you.
getting on or off the bus need to walk into the middle of the street. And what is happening, imagine if you're in your 70s, your 80s, as I am, or you're holding a child, or you have to get the wheelchair, go to the corner, get on the ramp and come back up to approach the bus because someone has just thinks that they have they're entitled to the bus stop space. So that's one thing that is in this neighborhood, as is in other neighborhoods, but this is the one that affects most of us here in Sunset Park. Something has to be done. And the technology exists because it has been tried in Manhattan, where if a bus is arriving and the bus stop is blocked, there is a picture that is taken from the front of the bus. The driver doesn't have to get involved, showing that the bus stop is blocked and sending a ticket directly to the registrant of that vehicle. So we need that here in Fifth Avenue. And that is something that for some reason the MTA has the technology. It is not rocket science. It has been tried and it is not implementing in neighborhoods like Sunset Park. The other thing about also that B63 should also have intermittent express buses, because we cross at least more than six bus lines that go east-west. And so the majority of the people get off and on at those stops as they're making transfers. And
please summarize the comments.
Okay, so the more seating at the bus stops for sure. No, be nice if it was protected seating, but at least the seating. We are so short of that. And the last thing I'm going to say is that the B37 could be more useful to this whole stretch from, of South Brooklyn, Southwest Brooklyn, and even into Fort Greene, if it were able to cross Atlantic Avenue and go and then Flatbush Avenue, rather than turning on Atlantic and then coming back and going south, and then finding a way and making the first left available and go all the way down to to Brooklyn Hospital or to down to the Navy Yard. This is an issue of people here either cannot afford, or even those who can afford a car.
Please wrap up. I'm sorry.
Okay,
You're more than 2 minutes.
I know, I understand. So that's it. And if there's, I'll put my contact information on the chat if anyone needs to reach out for more. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a reminder to all of our attendees to please keep your microphones muted until it is your turn to speak, and also to keep your comments to 2 minutes. Our next speaker will be Jason Anthony, followed by Jesse Figueroa.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Charlton and Jack, for making this forum possible. Let's let everybody know that there will be several routes that will be eliminated here in Brooklyn. The B2 will be eliminated, the B24, the B32, the B35 limited will be discontinued, the B38, the B49 limited will be discontinued, the B84 will be discontinued. So will be several routes that will be discontinued. but agreeing with Maria, the B36 over here in Atlantic Avenue will be suffering. Several bus stops will be removed. The B103 Limited will no longer serve downtown Brooklyn, but my suggestion will be that instead of ending at the junction, my suggestion will be that they could serve the Pier 6 Brooklyn Bridge Park, connecting the New York City ferry. That will be the ideal terminal for the B103 that actually is only served by the B63. And also the proposal for the B40, instead of beginning at Empire Boulevard, why not beginning it at Grand Marnier Plaza? That is a circle and it's easy for turning. So I'll see everybody in the MTA committee meetings. For those that want to see the maps, you can see it on the MTA's website. And I'll see you guys next week in the workshops.
Thank you, Jason, so much for your comments.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Jesse Figueroa, and I believe he prepared a written statement, given that he's not here right now. He said that it's too bad that I won't be able to use the B15 because it will now terminate at Spring Creek, Starrett City. He would now have to take the R, F, or G train and the new proposed B55 from Kensington Church Avenue, FG station to JFK. So that was from Jesse Figueroa. Up next, we will have Alexander Kemp.
Hi, how are you? I'm not sure if it cycled back or not, but my name is Alexander Kemp. I'm a representative from TW Local 100. I represent the Brooklyn Bus Division. I'm one of the reps here. And it's just important that we want to make sure that in any redesign, that labor is a partner with the community in achieving the best brand of bus service that we can get. It's pivotal that we work on these things together, because what ill affects you will ill affect the drivers who service you. Many of the issues that we've seen in a lot of these meetings is that the bus redesign does fall short on equity. Another component is if you speed up service but give less service, you're almost defeating the purpose of what you're intending to do. Getting a faster bus that you wait longer for does not serve any specific community any better than it does now. Headways are a great issue. Having a bus waiting 15 minutes or 20 minutes when if one of those buses are missing, now you have a 40-minute wait with no connecting service because you might have eliminated or reduced a line that ran through that line. Many of the issues that we're going to tackle, I'm not sure if many people are aware, to stop a lot of those cuts in other boroughs, especially Queens. The more people who came out and spoke against their current lines being affected have essentially stopped those cuts from happening. I'm not sure if you're aware, but many of the Queens redesign has been modified at least 7 times because of the community advocates and because of the citizens of those areas who have came out and went to every single meeting. And I will use the adage that the baby who cries the loudest gets the milk first. So make sure that you're not the baby who's asleep in the crib.
Go ahead, brother. You good?
Yeah, no. You know, we are going to rally our constituents against any cuts that ill affect anybody from any specific community. ADA is extremely important. It's actually the foundation of buses, right? We understand that buses, although in the redesign, their idea is to push more people to the trains, and get them to more cross sections that you can get them on a train and get them to these other locations faster, which is why they're expediting the process of actually putting elevators and getting that completed a lot of the stations. But it misses the mark because the reality is that there are a lot of people who are physically challenged, who don't either want to use the train or intimidated by the train or have disabilities that prevent them from using the train effectively. We know that Brooklyn carries one of the biggest networks and has some of the most transit deserts in specific areas. We do not want to compromise the integrity of bus service. We want better bus service. The idea is that you want to be able to get on a bus, get to where you're going fastly, and be able to rely on that bus. Part of that is understanding where the needs are. And the other part is that transit has to understand their bottom line should be citizen-based, not MTA-based. The idea is that it's a public service, and a public service should meet the needs of the public, not of shareholders, not of board members, not of people who don't even utilize the system. That is where labor and the citizens meet together, and we'll be counting on each other to achieve a better bus network. So stay tuned.
Yeah, some people have questions for you. Is it possible you could stay for the panel discussion?
No, it's not a problem at all. I'd be happy
great
to help with that for sure.
Thank you so much. So we're coming to that in about, I think, 10 or 15 minutes. We're coming to the panel.
So if you don't mind, I'd like to come back in 10 minutes just because as a parent, I'm going to go put my daughter to sleep and then I'll come back.
Not a problem. We got you.
I'll be here for everybody. Okay.
All right. Got you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely. All right. Thank you very much. Up next, we will have Danny Nankumar, followed by James Muse.
All right, good afternoon, good night. Thank you, Charlton, for having me on, and thank you, Jack. So the MTA just went the Wausau. We already went through the Queens bus redesign. I'm going to the Brooklyn bus redesign. We have so many issues going on right now with public transit. One, we have ADA accessibility. We don't want our senior citizens to be walking 5 to 10 blocks to get to bus stops. Also, we're eliminating bus stops, which is not good. Also, our next concern is that, let's say if it's winter time now, it's like 12 inches of snow. How are we gonna get people in wheelchairs? And that's an ADA violation. Also, we have people that block our bus lanes. They just double park their cars, their trucks. And then we also need bus camera enforcement in these routes to protect these people. Also, bike lanes too should need to be moved to a certain place also. So there's a lot of issues that needs to be getting done also. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be James Muse, followed by Greg Homadas.
Oh, hi, everyone. I'm really glad I can join with you today. I could got one thing about, so sometimes local buses, limited buses, and it's select bus services. Like, here's a one question about this. Or the Metro cars, or I can use your RB cards are different. Well, like for example, I can take the B11 all the way to Millwood and come back home to Sunset Park. Another thing, a couple years ago, I take the B60 all the way to Williamsburg, all the way to the Canarsie. Another thing, I was born in the Bronx, and Bronx buses are different too. You know about the Bronx buses, they got a BX12 select bus services. And the M60 select bus services, they're going to a LGA. That means a LaGuardia Airport for short. Or you could take the B15 all the way to a JFK. So you could take the Q5 or the Q10 all the way to the JFK Airport too. And sometimes you had to take the Edislet bus service as well. You could pay for it or you can buy it to go in too. What do you think? Oh, David knows. What do you think? The B60 or the B46, they
James, you have to wrap up your comments now.
okay, got it.
Yeah, time is up.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for speaking. Our next speaker will be Greg Homadas, followed by Tanina Agosto.
Good afternoon, everybody. Greg Hamadas. I work for transit, and I don't own a car, so I use public transportation for my travel. Couple things I want to say is that I echo what Alan said before about restoring the B71 service in downtown from Gowanus to the Grand Army Plaza area of Brooklyn, because the rush hour commuter car traffic is pretty horrible and it clogs up local streets. So I believe that should be reinstated. Another thing that I see lacking in the bus plan is that they should restore the B69 bus along Prospect Park West and 8th Avenue along Prospect Park. That way seniors and disabled should not walk uphill two blocks from 7th Avenue up to Prospect Park West to enjoy the park. And this was in a previous rendition of bus changes, and that should be reinstated, in my opinion. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tanina Agosto, if she's here, followed by Abubakar Okeke Diagne. And again, my sincere apologies if I mispronounce anyone's name. Going once. Okay, our next speaker is Abubakar Okeke Diagne.
Hello, you can call me Abu. I am in Bed-Stuy. This whole plan is garbage. Like, they should just not do a bus redesign. And it's overwhelming to think about all the changes that are happening, but I'm gonna try to break it down quickly. The only thing that I liked in this plan was the X55, and they even poisoned that well with cutting off the B15. One of the big issues I saw, the B25 overnight, when they're cutting that doesn't Dumbo, there's no buses in Dumbo, at all. They cut that. The G train, for me, there's two ways that I go to either the 46 to Broadway or sometimes the B52 to the stop. I believe it's on Clarkson. But since they're keeping the B52 on Gates, now that's too long of a walk at that point. Basically, people said, we had these buses are slow, like the Tompkins Avenue bus. And so then the MTA was like, all right, there's no bus on Tompkins Avenue. That's how we're going to fix the slow bus, by no bus. But we're still going to, it's 2 blocks away, but there's no bus. And I think that pretty much summarizes what's happening. They told us the frequencies. They could cut the frequencies at any time. Don't even trust that at all. And I can especially see the B15 overnight. I can see that frequency being cut down, which would then make it even harder to get a transfer to get to the airport. also the Q24, Bed-Stuy, and I hope I hit everything. Thank you.
Thank you. We agree with you.
Thank you. Our next speaker and maybe final speaker, if Donna L is not going to speak, we have Deborah Young.
I'm here, Deborah Young. Is it my turn?
Indeed it is.
Okay, thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank the Passengers Unlimited for organizing this session this evening. I'm not so sure how I was received the information, but I'm just thankful that I did. I don't want to repeat all that's been said about the atrocities that this redesign is going to propose for many of our communities throughout New York City. The hardship that I see these proposed changes imposing upon the handicapped, the seniors, and those in underserved communities has already been spoken to. I think that this is an excellent opportunity for us to have a call to action. The concerns I have is that how do we reach out to people like the seniors who don't necessarily have access or come onto the social media sessions like this, who don't do Zooms and get this? How do we get them to also weigh in? Because they're going to be heavily impacted. How do we get information out to them, such as maybe a templated letter that we can give out at those different senior centers in our communities, so that the elderly and those people would be able to send letters? They're not going to write a letter like we're proposing, but maybe if we had something that we can hand out throughout our communities via our community boards, maybe that would be helpful. I also want to suggest or ask if there are plans to continue this, to reach out to this group, those who've joined in, so we can spread the word through our communities, because this is not over. And we need, as it's already been said, to get as many people as possible to voice their concerns. And lastly, the fact that it was said that they did a survey, I just haven't found one person who has participated in a survey about their proposed redesigns. Thank you for this opportunity.
Deborah, we're going to answer all your questions in the panel discussion.
Okay,
and
thank
we have
you.
some plans for that. So just stay tuned for the panel discussion in a few minutes.
Thank you.
I think that was the last speaker. So,
Jack,
do we want to go into the panel discussion, or do we want to take a 5
Jack,
minute?
can we just ask, is there anyone who's online who has not spoken yet who registered to speak? Please raise your hands.
Yeah, if anyone wants to speak and register but did not speak yet, please raise your hand and we will cover you. I know, James, we did cover you. Is there anybody else who we did not call on?
Please raise your hands. Let's see. We have James Moose, who has his hands up.
He already spoke.
Oh, he already spoke. Okay, there's no one else. All right, let's go to the panel discussion then, I guess.
All right, so if you have a question for the panel, once again, on our panel, we have Alan Rosen, the former director for MTA New York City Transit Bus Planning. We have Alexander Kemp from TWU Local 100. We have Carl Pereira, a transportation advocate. Charlton D'Souza, the president of Passengers United, and Christopher Greif, a New York State disability advocate. So if anyone has any questions for the panel, please raise your hand.
Jack, this is Chris. Before we do anything, I'd like to add something, because there were some communication that we need to be very clear what everyone is, what it's hearing. A lot of presentation, and there's a lot of people maybe getting a little confused from the speaking. So can I speak just for 2 minutes?
No problem.
Thank you. First of all, good evening, everyone. Some of you who came in already, I just want to be very clear to everyone and to answer also some people's comments, like Ms. Deborah as well. What we said earlier, and I want to be very clear, that you as representing your community. We need you to pass the word out also. That's number one. Second, this is a draft plan. When I'm hearing words saying cuts, it is not a cut or being discontinued, because that's where people, this a plan that you're doing right now is only a draft. So please be very cautious and looking, because when we say draft, it is a draft. It is not finalized yet, but we do need to hear from you all, because bus stops that may be discontinuing, we need to hear that, and DOT needs to hear this too. As I put this in the chat so many times, there was a DOT ADA representative. He needs to hear this too, as well as the MTA and your elected officials. As Charlton D'Souza will vouch with me, he agreed with what we said earlier, as well as a lot of advocates who said it earlier. Please get your elected officials. Make sure your community boards in your borough of Brooklyn know to hear your voice. And I know, Alan, you want to back me up on something?
Well, hold on. Wait, Chris. So I know you spoke. We have to go to the panel discussion. What we're going to do is focus on the topics that we have for the panel to discuss. But I do want to say one thing. You know, a proposal can actually go into effect and become devastating. So this is why we need Brooklyn to wake up. And look what happened in Queens. Everyone was sleeping. Look what happened in the Bronx. No one was paying attention, and all these bus cuts and routes came. So we need to be on our A game. This is to everyone here. We need to pay attention to what's going on. And like I said, communicate with your elected officials, write letters. You can also attend the MT board and committee meetings as well every month. And you can also attend the PCEC MTA New York City Transit Riders Council meeting that is open to the public, I believe. You just have to register in advance on the website, or you can get on the mailing list. So we need everyone to make comments. And the views, I just want to make something clear. The views of the panelists do not represent those, might not represent those of Passengers United. So I just want to be very cautious about that. But we support the bus riders 110%. All right, let's go to the panel. The first topic on the panel, please, Jack.
All right, so we're going to move on to our panel discussion. We're going to have 5 rounds, or actually, are we having 5 or 6? Are we including the last one?
Yes, Jack.
All right, so our first round is bus stop eliminations, and each panelist will get 2 minutes to cover that. Or are we not doing it that way? How do we want to do this?
Yes, we're doing it that way. Exactly.
All right, each panelist has 2 minutes to comment on that. Starting with Alan Rosen.
The major assumption of the redesign study that buses are slow is erroneous. Therefore, the decisions made cannot further the goals and objectives of the study. Calling bus stop elimination, bus stop balancing, or bus stop consolidation is still bus stop elimination. Buses traveling faster individually does not necessarily result in a faster trip for passengers. Contrary to MTA claims that Brooklyn's local buses travel at an unacceptable speed of 7 miles per hour, such speed is reasonable, not slow. We're considering that in Brooklyn, on local streets, the average automobile speed is only about 10 miles an hour. Buses travel slightly slower than cars because it necessarily must make more stops. Of course, strategies could be employed in congested corridors to increase bus speeds there. Overall, passenger travel time is the sum of walk time to and from the bus wait time, bus stop access, and egress time. If additional buses or a form of rapid transit is required, those factors also must be considered. Yet the MTA is primarily only concerned with bus speeds. Evidence that the MTA doesn't understand that total trip time matters is that in their recent online passenger survey, they asked respondents not to consider the time it takes to walk to and from the bus stop when calculating their overall trip time. Removing bus stops is one method how the MTA is trying to increase bus speeds. Heavily utilized bus stops are targeted as well as lightly utilized ones. Most buses rarely stop at lightly utilized stops. Some buses skip as many as 90% of the stops, of the likely utilized stops. So removing them doesn't save any significant travel time. Eliminating heavily utilized stops increases dwell time at adjacent stops. Bus stop removal saves only a fraction of the claimed 20 seconds per bus stop removed. The likelihood of missing a bus stop also increases having it pass by while you're walking a further distance to the nearest stop. That also increases overall travel time. I have a lot more to say, but that's my 2 minutes.
All right, let's move on to Alexander Kemp, TWU Local 100, Vice President.
Yeah, no, just to be clear, I'm not the vice president. I'm actually one of the division reps. The vice president of Brooklyn is John Paul Patafio, JP Patafio. I know in this panel or in the group, we do have the VP of MAP STOA, Donald Yates, who represents the Manhattan and Bronx division and has bore witness to the effects and the consequences of what the redesign looks like in real time. And he's currently dealing with a lot of the issues related to it now. But relative to bus stops themselves, adding more stops, removing more stops, by taking away stops, just from a bus operator's perspective, just to be very clear, the more times we pull into a bus stop, the more opportunity we have for an accident pulling out of a bus stop. You have to be very clear that when the DOT created bike lanes, they did not consider that by putting bike lanes on the serviceable side of a bus, you would in essence increase the consequence of bus interactions with bicycles. They never considered the reality of what e-bikes would be to our world. And every day and all day, we are having issues with e-bikes making collisions with buses and having no accountability. Part of the redesign, when they say they want to speed up service, is asking buses to essentially move quicker. If you remove stops and you ask buses to move quicker, are you then taking precautions to protect buses from non-regulated motorized vehicles or bikes that are moving in the same lanes as us? Part of having an efficient system is making sure that the bus can actually move, right? Two components of that are the more stops, the more pulling out. Also, the more time we have for occurrences per se, customer issues, pay issues, safety issues, bike issues. What good is a faster system if you don't remedy the double parked cars, the people who punch drivers in the face, and the bikes that make it impossible to operate safely? If we have to stop and convene our trips just to be sure that we don't have accidents, are you really getting a better bus service? So I think when they eliminate stops and ask us to move quicker, yeah, me not stopping in 2 blocks will probably get me 4 blocks faster, but will it give you a better service when I get 4 blocks away? That question they've yet to been able to answer.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, in the Bronx, we found that the bus was still waiting at the light by the time I walked to it. That was the crazy part. From the eliminated bus stop, if there's traffic, you know, you can't really solve anything, right?
No, for sure. And the other reality is I think, and it was mentioned earlier, the DOT plays a very pivotal role in any redesign. And, you know, having bus lanes that are non-accessible. I mean, you can just consider Utica Avenue, for example. Any bus on Utica Avenue, when they get to Eastern Parkway, the bus lane serves no purpose. You have literally dollar vans parked in the bus lane as if it's a parking lot with zero enforcement. I don't know how you reimagine a system without identifying what's already there. I tend to believe that we would have a more equitable system already if they just put more resources to actually oblige what we already have, rather than, again, as someone else said, you don't make faster service by just eliminating service, right? Eliminating lines. So yeah, if you don't have to drive down that block, I guess it'll be faster. But
all right, so we're gonna go right to Carl Pereira next, and then we'll come back to you, Alexander, in the next round.
Please, for sure.
Yep. All right, so Carl, take it away.
Yes, I'm going to continue what I spoke about earlier. I was mentioning when you're looking at the bus stops in your area that they're going to remove, always try to look at the previous stop and the next stop, what the distance is now versus the distance that the MTA is proposing by eliminating the stop. Also look at the stop that they're eliminating if it's a traffic generator, if there's a school there, a house of worship, a senior center, any type of business that would draw a lot of crowds to that bus stop. So those are things that have to be looked at. Also look at the traffic light. If the bus stop is right at the corner and there's a traffic light there, it doesn't make sense to remove the stop because the bus is probably going to be stopped at the traffic light anyway. So that's also a consideration. Another consideration is when you're looking at the distance between the stops after the stop is removed, you also got to consider how far away is the next, let's say the bus runs east to west. How far away is the next east-west bus going the same direction? In other words, say the bus is running along one avenue, Liberty Avenue, and then there's another bus running along Atlantic Avenue. You can't just consider the person's going to just walk an extra 2 blocks to that bus stop. You have to consider that the person has to walk. Say if the person lives in between Liberty Avenue and Atlantic Avenue, there may be 3 streets in between there. So now that person has to not only walk 2 blocks, he may have to walk in between the other 2. So it may not just be 2 additional blocks. It may actually be 4 or 6 blocks extra by eliminating stop. So that's I think that's other important factors that need to be considered is how far away other routes are that they're eliminating stops, not just the route in general. So the MTA can take a look at that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we move to Charlton D'Souza.
Yeah, sorry. So the only thing I would say is when I went to the Bronx and I saw what happened at the Patterson houses, to see those poor seniors having to walk 7 blocks was heartbreaking. I was outraged by that. And one thing I think that Brooklyn, the lesson learned from the other boroughs that needs to be applied to Brooklyn is management, MTA management, the people that are making these bus redesign plans need to literally do the walk from the eliminated bus stop to the next bus stop. Because doing something on Google, doing something on the computer doesn't really tell you the whole story. And I think the bus drivers also, they need to ride the buses and they need to do test runs on these so-called proposed routes. Do test runs in real-time conditions and have have passengers pretending to get on, testing it out to see in real time what the running times are. This is something I said during the Queens bus redesign, but nobody listened to us. But I think it's very important. And I think the video said everything we needed to say. So let's go to Christopher.
For starters, good evening, everyone. For starters, one thing I'm going to say, and since I agree with our representative from TWU, he's right about one thing about cars in bus stops and everything. But one problem that, MTA and bus drivers and I all agree that there is issues going on. The one thing that I have put this on the chat so many times tonight, I think that people got to realize that what these lists that's on the bus stops, we need to hear from those people saying why you want to remove that bus stop. But we need to know, is there a senior center, a day have program for people with disabilities, which we got to remember, disability is also there too. We have veterans areas that veterans do use some of those sites. So we do want to remind that we do have veterans that I know I saw in the chat. But the very important thing is it's not just MTA we have to get attention to. It's DOT, because bike lanes does affect the buses and everyone. Not everyone can use a bike, and we want to use the bus. I want to use the bus, but one thing is we need to make it very clear. We need the buses to stay where they are, and we need to make sure that the main thing is if you're waiting for a bus, please have your fare ready to go. So please make sure that you let Iman know from DOT, who represents the accessibility, to know this. So let's make sure we do that. Thank you.
Can I add something here on bus stops?
Go ahead, quick.
Sure.
The accepted US standard is a quarter-mile walk to a bus stop, not a quarter mile between bus stops. What they're doing is they're ignoring US standards and they're accepting international standards of a half mile or 3/4 of a mile walk to a bus stop. The average local bus trip is only 2.3 miles. People aren't going to walk half mile or 3/4 of a mile just to ride 2 miles on the bus and then walk another 3/4. They'll take an Uber, they'll do something else, which is why ridership is going to go down, not go up, if they eliminate all these bus stops. In Manhattan Beach, there are 2 bus stops that are right in front of the entrances to the beach. They're proposing to eliminate one of them. One of them was already eliminated in 2006, and I had to put it back a year later because instead of having 50 people at each one of those bus stops on a beach day, you had 100 people at one stop. So they had to put the stop back, and now they don't learn from their mistakes. They're proposing to eliminate the Hastings Street stop all over again. I just wanted to add, if people should go to bklYner.com and read my article where I talk about bus stops in more detail. And I also have a link in there to my plan and to a petition you should all sign on change.org to stop the elimination of bus stops.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Up next, we are moving on to round 2, which we will cover route consolidations. Who do we want to start? You know what? Why don't we start with Alexander Kemp first, and then keep going down the list.
Yeah, Mr. Kemp, did you want to take that? We wanted to hear your take on it. Okay, so why don't we just let Paul Pereira go? Paul, are you there?
Jonathan, you want me to speak? This is
Can you
Chris.
please unmute? Carl's muted. There you
Paul,
are.
can you please unmute?
Yeah, a problem with the screen. All right. With route consolidations in some cases it's good because in some cases it's good, some cases it's bad. In cases where it's good, I'm saying if a route is being consolidated, it does provide more accessibility to more routes across the borough. But then but the MTA has also taken into consideration congestion issues in between, like if they in between the 2 routes they're consolidating, and to make sure that there's enough subway transfer points in between. For one example is the new Q57. That was a good idea to combine the Q110 with the Q36. However, there's no subway connection at 179th Street in Jamaica. And
We're talking about Brooklyn. This is a Brooklyn meeting. Yeah, please.
Brooklyn, well, with route consolidations in Brooklyn, I can take a shot at that. I'm just trying to think. I saw some basically splits. I'm trying to think of one consolidation, but route. I'm just trying to think where they.
So yeah, the 51, which is very important. The 51 is going to run from Brooklyn all the way down Linden Boulevard
No,
to Queens.
on this session. Well, I'll set it up too.
Yeah, so that's a good route, though. I think the Q51 is a good example of a it's a new route, though. So I think, but I don't think they have any. They did any too much combining, except on the northern end of Queens, the Q68. I think they did a good job combining that with the B24 route. Is going to provide accessibility between northern Queens, Astoria, and Brooklyn. So I'm in favor of the Q68, but I also think they also need to extend the Q70 SDS also to Roosevelt Avenue and Williamsville Bridge Plaza to provide more accessibility between other parts of Queens and northern Brooklyn. So I think that would be good, because then if people have transferred to a route like the 44, they could get to Queens, to central Queens, like Roosevelt Avenue, Jackson Heights. So I think that's going to improve a lot of things if they a lot of route consolidations.
And I'm very concerned about the B-15. That's something that I think, what's his name, is going to speak on. Alan's going to speak on now. Alan, take it away.
Okay, you want me to speak on the B-15?
Because we had a comment from an airport worker who joined us tonight, who works at JFK Airport. So yeah, it's a very serious.
Yes, well, let me first say that the B-55 is a good idea. It's in my plan also. I called it, let me get hold on a second. I called it the B-34, they calling it the B-55. What I would have done with JFK was I would have done the B-55. I would have had a new route in southern Brooklyn going to JFK, and I would have left the B-15 as is. So you would have 3 routes going to JFK, one from the northern part of Brooklyn, one from the central, and one from the southern part. What they're doing is they're just flip-flopping. Instead of having the direct route from northern Brooklyn, they're having it from central Brooklyn instead. There's no reason why you should harm existing riders to help new riders. There are thousands of people who use the B-15 to go to work at JFK, and a lot of them chose their job because the B-15 is there. Now they're going to have to find a different way to get to work. These people, they're college students. They think they're playing with lines on a map. This is just a college project. They don't realize they're playing with people's lives here and people's livelihoods. And you just can't eliminate service on one route to JFK and replace it with another route, although the B-55 is a good idea. It would even be better if it went straight along Linden Boulevard and not make any stops or very few stops after East 98th Street. It could go straight to the airport and have that run on Linden and keep the B-15 as it is on new lots. Let me talk, as far as I'm really not certain what you mean by route consolidation. The only route consolidation I really see is they're combining the B2 and the B100, and they're doing it the wrong way. I agree that they don't need a bus route on Quentin Road and another bus route on Avenue R, but the B2 routing in Marine Park goes right through the center of Marine Park, and it serves more people with less walking than the B100 that just goes straight across Fillmore. What they should do is have the B2 be extended from Kings Plaza to Manhattan to Bill Basin to take over the B100. But then they'd also would have to extend the B9 along the Avenue N to Bergen Beach.
Got it. Is Mr. Kemp back? Alexander Kemp?
Yes, I'm back. I'm back.
Take it away. It's all yours.
Yeah, so in regards to combining lines, I think we can speak to the opposite of it, right? Interlining and the consequences of what interlining actually have done to the bus system. By interlining, you guarantee that if one bus is late, that 2 buses are not available. It never made any sense. There are certain lines in Brooklyn that I'll use the 43 as an example. The 43 service is absolutely horrible, primarily because the 43 shares a line or service with the B16, meaning that if the B16 is stuck on Caton on its way towards Lincoln Road, you now don't have the same operator who's going to do the 43 available to you at Lincoln Road. The redesign now calls for the 16 to go straight down Clarkson, like where the 12 goes. But they did not consider now you are eliminating a connecting service from Borough Park to Crown Heights. That's a huge issue considering that it services the Hasidic community who now doesn't have a connection to get to Crown Heights. To go from Kingston Avenue, now you would not be able to take the 16 to Lincoln Road and catch the 43. You would essentially have to either take another bus from either the 41 or take it across to New York Avenue and take another bus up. It doesn't make much sense. Combining lines, again, the same thing with the 57, ending at Livingston and Smith. Every single one of those parking spots there are being taken by people who use placards from the DOE, from the court system, and from the police departments. I don't know where those buses are going to lay over, but now you're just adding an extra layer to get to Red Hook and to IKEA.
Can you explain what interlining is for the people who do not know what it is?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. So interlining means it's one driver who covers two runs, two lines. So basically, let's say I pick a run or I work on the 43. I would do a round trip or two round trips on the 43. I would go to lunch, and on my second half of the day, I would do the B16. So now let's say the B16, I'm supposed to do at 1 o'clock after my lunch. But because I'm stuck in traffic on Manhattan Avenue on the B43, I am not now available to do the B16. So now that B16 run, let's say run number 1 that I would do on my second half, does not have a driver until I actually get down to Lincoln Road, actually take my lunch, actually wait 30 minutes, and then go back out on that bus. That bus is now an hour and a half late, and with no availability on that bus, because now in the second half of that bus, I am the only driver to do the PM work on that bus. So that's why a lot of times you'll end up with no service at night, because the bus driver who should be driving that 67 at night is still on a B68. At the same time, he should be on a 67, right? So that is the consequence of interlining. It's the reason why when they put articulateds on the B35, they stopped interlining it with the 37s and the 63s, because those buses would not have a driver for it.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on something if I can. I had a question came in from the public. So there's route consolidations going on, with the express buses coming out of Spring Creek Depot with the MT Bus Company. Same thing in Queens, where they're merging the New York City Transit and MT Bus Company routes. Do you have any words of wisdom or
no, right. So again, remember the redesign. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you short. The redesign is not finalized. We don't know essentially how those are going to play out, because you have multiple bargaining units. But what we do know is that the 103 is intended to stop at Flatbush Junction, and they're creating that new line that's going to pick up that and then run straight through Red Hook down through 20th Street and Park Slope. And they haven't determined if it's going to go to 3rd Avenue and turn down Hamilton, or if it's going to use Prospect, or what the end game will be to supplement that. But without question, you are eliminating a service for people who live in Flatbush to get downtown Brooklyn. What are they going to take, the 41? I mean, the 103, as someone mentioned earlier, goes through the Prospect Expressway and cuts off 20 or 30 minutes. It has very limited stops from wherever their traffic zones are to get people from Ocean Parkway, to get people from Coney Island Avenue, to get people from Cortelyou downtown Brooklyn. By eliminating that, you now are creating a transit desert by design. It doesn't, adding another bus to shorten the trip and eliminate opportunities for people. That's why we have very serious concerns about whether or not this is the equivalent of redlining. When you talk about those other MTA bus and ATU represented areas, or the Spring Creek bus line, or the ones who are coming from some of the Queens redesigns, are you really creating equity for everybody who those neighborhoods start with? Or is this just a redesign to gentrify certain neighborhoods that in essence had poor service before because they didn't get the service they deserved? So now you have an influx of new members to that community who are more affluent that they want to service, but in essence, they're actually shorting the people that they deem as less desirable. And we have very serious concerns that could be one of the issues. So we have to pay very close attention to that. And which, again, we've seen already play itself out in the Bronx, and who they determined who would actually get overlooked.
Yeah, because in the Bronx, they cut the Q50 into Co-op City, and everyone's furious about that. It only runs during rush hours now, and people have said that's a nightmare. And then if you look at what they're doing with the express buses, no Saturday and Sunday service in Brooklyn on the buses that come out of Spring Creek Depot.
Correct. By Gateway, by Canarsie, they don't have service on Saturdays. All the stops by Rock Station, those buses, and these were one of the concerns. And I just want to highlight really fast about the 55 and the 15 that the gentleman had spoken about just a few minutes ago. That was one of the big issues that were brought up from the current Brooklyn Division Chair for Local 100 Carter. He had stated and identified that there is no service now. You are not giving better service to people going towards Cross Bay Boulevard. By eliminating the 15, there are so many people who use the 15, it is impossible that new 55 is going to be able to supplement the service that they're taking away from the 15. There were conversations without question about why is there not a bus running straight down Linden Boulevard towards the aqueduct and resorts, so on and so forth. And some of the concerns we have, again, are you trying to eliminate certain passengers from getting to certain conduits, and are you just making life more difficult for certain people that are not getting the same equity as everybody else in the city? These are the things that we need to bang very, very loud. These are parts that I saw somebody from Jamani Williams' office was here, but it can't be isolated to one rep. It has to be every single council person who represents your district has to hear your voice. And we in labor are more than willing to stand with you and make sure that there's equity through every aspect of the city. It can't just be for a chosen few. We can't figure out how to get people to Manhattan faster and downtown Brooklyn faster and forget that there's people who live in Brownsville, Sunset Park, Coney Island, Canarsie, and everything in between.
So I'm sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot, brother, but since a year, I just got people are asking me questions. They're afraid to ask it. So they're asking me the question to ask you.
No,
So,
for sure.
With these bus redesigns, what people want to know is, what's happening with the situation with bus driver employment and are they hiring more bus drivers or have more bus drivers left?
Let's talk about it. One of my huge arguments, there are an enormous amount of bus drivers being hired. I notice on Twitter all the time that transit says that unfortunately there will not be service on a specific line today due to driver availability. There are components of that they leave out. No, there are drivers who are available. The problem is that the transit authority is actually holding back runs. They're not filling work. There are drivers who want to do overtime, and transit, as a means to justify their own budget and to save money, are actually sacrificing members of the public. We have identified in every single depot in Brooklyn runs that management is intentionally holding back. In other words, let's say I use a number. Let's say there's 20 runs on the B35. Those 20 runs, there might be one person or two people who are out sick, but there are two drivers who are in that depot who want to cover that work. Transit will not let those drivers cover that work because they want to save that money. So we're not talking about 2 runs. We're talking about 10 per depot, 15 per depot, 20 per depot, where there are operators sitting idly available to cover that work. And so that transit doesn't want to pay overtime. They will tell you that you don't have a bus for an hour and a half and post on Twitter that you now have open runs because of driver availability, when it's really more about transit greed.
But what happens to the driver? Does the driver get paid while he's sitting there waiting for the bus?
Yes, but they're more concerned with overtime. So the issue is more so about that driver who finishes. Let's say I finish at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's a run that's open at 2 o'clock. They will leave that run open at 2 o'clock because they don't want to allow me to work 4 hours extra overtime. But that run that starts at 2 o'clock that they're not going to fill, you have to remember, from that driver finishes at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night. So that means you're leaving a gap of service for 8, 9, 10 hours in the middle of the day, which means that at 9 o'clock, when a driver pulls up to a bus stop at any specific point, there's a person who's been waiting there an hour because transit didn't fill that stop. And now that person is irate because they had a hard day at work, or because their life or whatever consequence now becomes something they're going to lament on that driver, when the driver who came is actually the driver on time. But because of transit forcing unpaid overtime, they do not want to allow us to cover the work and then put it back onto the general public. So they, in essence, are putting the drivers in harm, and they're making the passengers infuriated without even giving them an explanation that there is absolutely people who can cover that work. There is absolutely no reason for there to be gaps in service, but they, in essence, want to save money for their bottom line rather than provide customer service. And in case you forgot, public transportation is in essence a public responsibility for the people who mandate it. It is not a luxury, right? It's a public service because it's funded by taxpayer dollars. ADA community, the federal government pays for buses just so that there can always be a bus for people with disabilities. The standard of what the transit authority's responsibility is falls on the transit authority. if we tell you we're here ready to work and you say, no, we're not going to give you the work, but yet on the backside, you tell someone on Twitter, we're sorry you don't have a bus for an hour and a half. You should really tell the people the reason you don't have a bus for an hour and a half is because we don't want to pay a driver an extra $6 an hour for overtime.
Right. And so one of the problems in the Bronx bus redesign that happened in June, a lot of the trips that were supposed to go out haven't been going out. And it's making the situation even worse in the Bronx because people are waiting 40 minutes for a bus. So even with these bus redesigns, if they don't focus on the basics, like, you know, if they don't focus on hiring more drivers and also making sure that you have, better time management with the schedules and better operational management, then that becomes a problem of the headways.
Well, our dream is a 6-minute headway, right? That's a bus driver's dream, right? A bus operator's dream is 6-minute headways. I know there's a lot of components that or proponents that are pushing for 6-minute headways as a principle. But again, 6-minute headways or any headways can't be
Brother,
achieved.
you can say Riders Alliance. It's Riders Alliance that's pushing for it.
Right. Again, whatever. We try to, just as a position of principle as labor, I don't care who gives better bus service. I don't have a name. I have a result. The result is to make the operators more safe, the general public a better experience, and to have a collaborative response. That the idea is that we understand a city like New York should not have the issues we have in public transportation with the amount of resources that the MTA have, be it from the government, be it from the city, be it from the state, however it's manifested. The reality is that New York City generates an enormous amount of money. Wall Street generates an enormous amount of money, and they give nothing back to a system that helps the city sustain, right? We identified that during COVID, that in the event you stop service, you would cripple the whole state of New York. Then what did we identify? The whole state of New York is responsive to a system that we all operate and thrive in. So then why not put the investment back into that? Why hold runs back and punish the public for your bottom line? So the idea is we'll never get the adequate service we deserve until the people who are on this Zoom, the people who are in public office, and the people who operate the bus and represent the bus operators or the train or the motormen come together and say, hey, listen, transit, I am not going to accept the fact that you're holding runs back and making me wait 50 minutes. No, I'm going to make sure that all of those people on the MTA board are held accountable and challenge the depots when they say we're going to hold 20 runs back. You know how much time that is? You know how many people are underserved when they don't send out 20 buses? Can you imagine? Can you imagine if we as labor made a determination that every day we weren't going to move 20 buses? Do you know what the B35 would look like? Do you know what the B63 look like? You know what a bus on Atlantic Avenue or any bus downtown Brooklyn would look like if 20 buses decided to just stop at the same time? Well, that's what they're doing every single day when they choose not to send out 20 buses.
I want to make a point, and this is a point that I want the passengers to understand, and we also want labor, because we respect labor. We know it's really hard with buses. You know, being a bus driver in this city is really hard. I don't know how they do it every day, but they do it. And they do it with a smile and they do it with dedication. But I want to say something. The local 100 gives the elected officials money for campaigns, right? To get them elected. Why is it that the elected officials forget about that? And they often forget about local 100. They forget about bus drivers. You know how I know? Because when I go to them to complain, they tell me, oh, it's the MT issue. No, do your job. We need to start holding our elected officials accountable. Our state senators, our assemblymen, especially with, and another reason why you have less bus drivers is because many of them are getting assaulted. But I don't want to go on a tangent, but I'm just saying, with these bus redesigns, you have elected officials who haven't even read the plan, and they're going on TV and saying, this is a wonderful plan. With Riders Alliance, with Transportation Alternatives, who I should say, Riders Alliance gets money from the union. It needs to be said. I'm sorry to say that, but it needs to be said. We don't take money from anyone. We don't want money from the union. We don't want money from no one, because we want to be independent. But at the same time, we'll always respect labor and work with labor in a fair and objective way. You know what I'm saying? But we're also going to call out the bad things that we see. So I just want to make it clear to all the people on here, because we have to be fair and objective. But I think
Carlton, can I
Mr. Kemp,
speak to?
yeah. Can you let me finish? So I think Mr. Kemp has made some excellent points, but at the same time, we need to drill down our elected officials. And with these bus cuts that are being proposed, what happens if these bus cuts go through and you have to get on the subway? The subways are really, really bad, and the elected officials don't care. 11 people got murdered on the subway, guys. 11 people last year. Think about that. The MTA wants us now to use the subways at night. I don't want to do it. I want to take night owl bus service. And I'm sure a lot of our city workers on here and private workers want to take night owl bus service. So let me throw to Chris, and then we'll come back in the next round. Go ahead.
Well, for starters, I want to say one thing, and I'm glad, Alex, you did bring up some good points, because I want to thank you, because as I represent other hats, and I'm going to kick my hat as disability advocate, because I deal with a lot of people with disabilities as well. The concern is also that I think we need to make sure with these routes that, like, for example, we mentioned the B2 bus. The B2 bus represents a couple of points. It's not just Marine Park that we all go to the park. Kings Plaza Mall and Kings Highway train station is an ADA accessible. Second, you also have a high school, Madison High School. The 100 is already enough, cannot handle the max of people, especially students who are going to the subway or going to the mall. If we are going to extend the B2 bus, let it go to the Rockaways, because at Beach 116, you have another accessible train station. And with people who like to go to the beach, you can have that bus run as a second with the Q35. If the Q35 is already overpacked during the summer, we need to think of also making sure that people are having a good time during the beach season. But also, if we're going to talk about linking bus lines, the one issue that we're all forgetting, and I know, Alex, you said this before, but I think we need to let's be very clear. Cars are parking at bus stops. We have traffic that's stuck on Windsor Terrace where the 68 bus are stuck. There are 10 to 12 cars, and the B68 is doing the tango dance, going dun, 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 dun. And you know, I have to defend every 68 bus driver, because I only said to them, stuck at Windsor Terrace. They said, yeah, how'd you know? I said, because they see you all stuck going down the hill. So who can we blame? That's DOT. And the second thing is I tell drivers, stay focused on the line. Don't get yourself upset. Just stay on the target. Because one we try to deal with is the 68 goes to Coney Island. You have a lot of seniors and people with disabilities. The B44 Select bus that's instead going down Avenue Z may help also concern some helping seniors and people with disabilities. The problem is when there's some senior centers and those group homes over there in Sheepshead Bay, the problem is all those 44 selects are still empty, but the only people are using it is when the people are going to work during the times of 4 and something. But the problem is it's not because the buses are slow, it's the cars are blocking the buses, and the drivers have to make sure to try to get to the curb for a senior's walker, wheelchairs. And now we have to remind everyone, we're also doing a pilot called the baby stroller pilot, which is going very well. It's up by 98%, but we got to remind that if we're going to link bus lines, we need to make clearly that these are not cuts. These are drafts. But if we're going to solve the problem, we have to attend those workshops and go to our elected officials and our community boards to remind them that we need these lines to run. The TUW cannot do this by themselves. We need to work together and keep our whatever agenda we have in the past. Work together.
Yes, I agree with you on that, but I'm just saying there needs to be some accountability too, because all these elected officials, when they're running for office, they know how to come to Local 100 to get campaign money. And I'm sick of it. And also the elected officials know how to lie to the voters, because that's all they do.
I'm not worried about lying with the voters, Charlton. That's not where I'm going through.
No, but we need but hold on. We need to be direct because I've dealt with a lot of these elected officials. They don't ride the bus. And a lot of them who are coming on TV saying the Brooklyn bus redesign is excellent. I love it. Do you ride the bus? No, you don't. And the same thing in Queens. And when Riders Alliance came into Queens and they had bus shelter ads, which I wanted to talk about that tonight. They got free bus shelter ads, basically advertising that the MT's bus redesign is excellent. I have a problem with that, but
Charlton, just to answer your question, and I'm going to say this again. I'm going to say this. You are correct. There are some elected officials that are not really making their promise and they don't do it. And I can tell you that in Brooklyn, we have some that really not care. There are some, I will say, that they're watching right now on the YouTube. They are hearing us because they have attended not just the MTA, but they have been working with the MTA redesign and the accessibility. So before we jump to conclusion, let's not jump too fast, but let's, as I said before,
Chris, wait. I understand that you're saying that as well, but as an independent member, because I'm not on the New York City Transit Riders Council, you are. So at the same time,
I'm talking about Transit Riders Council. I'm talking about as a disability advocate. There's nothing to do with what other titles I have.
Right. I understand that.
No.
I understand that.
But let me say this. I'm talking as a Brooklynite, which this is Brooklyn, and I want to focus on Brooklyn when I'm saying. The buses that are traveling on streets have the issue. But I remind everyone who's watching this, you need to really count on going to your officials, or if they don't listen, guess what? You can vote them out. But community boards and advocating is the tools. Period.
But the problem, Christopher, on many of these community boards, you have members from Transportation Alternatives and Riders Alliance who are sitting on these boards. And I've experienced it. And this is a problem. So, I'm going to tell the public, the public riding public, do what they did in the Bronx. They called the news media out. They had rallies. They had press conferences. And that's what we're going to do at Passengers United. We've been doing that with the Queens bus redesign. We're going to have a couple of rallies in Brooklyn. And we got to shake up these elected officials because it's not right. And certain neighborhoods now have gentrification, like Mr. Kemp said, and it's now they're catering to a new base. And so this is the problem. And most of the people who came tonight on this chat, I would say 99% of them are losing their bus service. We haven't heard one positive comment saying the Brooklyn bus redesign is excellent because everyone who came here obviously saw posters on the buses. They saw it at JFK Airport. We did an extensive outreach for this meeting. So I want to go to the next panel. Let's take it away, Jack.
All right, so the next panel will be about, nope, that's not it. It'll be on transfers and the impact that this redesign will have on transfers. We will start with Charlton.
It's okay. Let Alan Rosen go. Or
all right, Alan Rosen, I guess.
Okay. Passengers with current one bus access will now require multiple buses, multiple fares, and longer walks. Many current route links are broken in favor of providing new links without providing justification. There's no analysis that's made that's showing more people will be helped than will be hurt by recombining various route links. The B57 will, forget about that one. The B103 is severed at the junction. B41 service to downtown Brooklyn is cut in half by terminating the Bergen Beach branch at Empire Boulevard instead of going all the way to downtown Brooklyn. Many people cannot get where they're going with in two buses. They need three buses or a bus, a train, and a bus. What we need is a time-based transfer where you could make unlimited rides for 2 or 2.5 hours instead of the number of vehicles you use. The MTA's fare cap doesn't help because most people no longer work 5 days a week, so they can't take advantage of the fare cap. $2.75 to travel less than a mile is too expensive, especially when they expect you to walk a half a mile or 3/4 of a mile to and from the bus system. That's why we need a time-based fare. I know it's not Brooklyn, but getting rid of the Q101, which currently goes directly into Manhattan from Astoria, will mean that anybody who uses that bus now will have to take 2 buses to Manhattan, which means they'll need an extra fare if they need to transfer in Manhattan. They're sending the the substitute for the Q101 instead to Williamsburg, when there's no shown demand that anybody from Astoria even wants to go to Williamsburg. Okay. That's and also many people are taking longer 2 bus rides than a bus to a train to a bus just to save a fare, which means they got to put on extra service to service those bus lines. So it really makes much more sense to instead of raising the fare every 2 years and hitting people who pay 2 fares twice as hard, they need to examine the structure of the system and change it to as many trips as you can within 2 or 2.5 hours. That's about all I have to say on the fare.
All right, so let's take it away to Mr. Kemp, because I'm sure he has an opinion on this. Because transfers is like people putting in their Metro cards is like the #1 dispute with, when they have no money on it. Okay, I think he stepped away. Is Mr. Kemp still with us? No, I guess not. All right, so let's go to Carl Pereira, and then we'll come back to Mr. Kemp if he comes back.
Oh, yeah, I have a lot to say about the transfers, similar to what Alan was speaking about. There's a lot of cases where people need more than 1 transfers to complete a trip. I'll give you an example. The MTA on their website has a tariff document. Now, after the Bronx bus redesign, they never updated that tariff document, but it's important. There was 2 bus routes that went from Manhattan into the Bronx. Those 2 bus routes, I think the M100 and the other one was the BX15. They both used to go into Manhattan. They cut those 2 lines back, got to go across 125th Street, and then they added the M125, and they just said they're going to give an extra transfer to those riders, but they never updated the tariff document to show that. And I'm saying that's just one example of something that's going to be happening in Queens and Brooklyn with all these routes changes. But there's also a lot of current issues where current riders are experiencing the same thing, that they may have to take 2 or 3 buses to get to a certain location. So I think that having the 2.5 hour or 2 hour unlimited transfer policy would solve that issue. When you get on the subway, you can take as many subway lines as you like, but when you get on a bus, you're only allowed one bus or 2 buses, or 1 bus to a subway, and that's it. If you have to get off on the end of the subway, you have to pay another fare. If you need, let's say you're getting off at 8th Avenue and 42nd Street, but you work on 12th Avenue, you can't make that long walk. You have to now pay another fare. You already use your transfer from a bus to a subway in Brooklyn or in Queens. So I think the MTA addressing this by putting a time-based transfer policy is better than the fare capping, because the fare capping is based on 7 days. That means you have to use the system exactly 7 days in a row to really receive a benefit, because they figured it out that over 6 days, that fare they figured out for the 6 days is based that you would get a free day on the 7th day. Now that might make sense to people that don't have a car, that live in Manhattan, or people that always use public transportation 7 days a week. But there's a lot of senior citizens, a lot of reduced fare customers, a lot of people that are working telecommuting 2 times a week. They can't meet that 7 day to get that fare discount. So it's really not helping too many people. So I think the MTA needs to address that. Thank you.
Can I add just one more point?
Yeah, go ahead.
Also, if you take a select bus service or a limited stop service, and now the select bus service is going to stop like every 3/4 of a mile. If you want to change for the local route, that's your only transfer you're allowed. So you can't no longer, you had to pay double fare to use a third bus. That's what happened with the B46 when the SBS was cut back from Williamsburg Plaza to Broadway. Anybody who took the SBS from Williamsburg Plaza and say changed to the B12 would now have to take the B46 local, change for the SBS, and now the B12 would now cost them an extra fare. And they're widening the stops on the limited and the SBS, so that's going to further increase the need to change to local buses. So they might put a few extra transfers here and there, but no way they're gonna put all the ones that are needed.
All right, thank you. So let's go to Christopher. Chris, take it away.
Yeah, I agree with everyone saying, and there's one thing that I'm going to add with disability. It is very difficult to go to the nearest accessible train station because you have to take a bus to a subway. And that's enough stressful. And especially, if you're waiting for a bus, sometimes you can wait an hour or two, and guess what? The transfer expires. We do need to work on extending the transfer timetable because some buses, are stuck in traffic. But at the same time, if we're traveling from one end of the borough to another, we do need to work on that as well. But at the same time, also, the way they're proposing to do a bus from, like Alan, you said earlier, from Kingsborough, if I want to go to Sheepshead Bay, that's additional transfer and another fare. And I know Kingsborough is agreeing with me that with their proposal to petition to keep the 49 bus where it is, and since Sheepshead Bay train station is going to be getting ready to be worked on beginning this year, they need to keep that route where it is and easy transfers to connections to a train station, hospital, senior centers, or day hat programs. Thank you.
Also, Sheepshead Bay is going to be made an accessible station.
That's what I said.
And they say in the report they're planning for the future, and at the same time they're eliminating access to the future accessible station.
And that's
why a good point.
Yeah, Alan, just to let you add it in, that's why Kingsborough Community College and the community over there, including 3 elected officials, have signed into the petition to advocate to keep the 49 bus to remain where it is, because a lot of the students who uses the 49 bus, not just the Sheepshead Bay station, but head up north, because a lot of them live in the Crown Heights, Stuyvesant area. Too.
They should also ask for the B44 SBS to be extended to Kingsborough College, because that would help an awful lot of people.
Absolutely.
Instead of having it be sent to Coney Island Hospital, where you already have the B36 serving. The only reason they're sending it to Coney Island Hospital is so they can reduce B36 service.
And there's also a proposal that they may extend the SBS 44 to Trump and Walbatt's houses through a loop. So we gotta have to see what they're gonna do with that.
All right, so is Mr. Kemp back? Okay, guess not, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, so why don't we go to the next round?
Yeah, let's do that. Our next round will be about overnight bus service. And do we still need the timer, or are we not going by that anymore?
I do want to talk about this because this is something, but you know what? Let Alan jump in because I'm sure Alan has something better to say than I'm going to say. So let him jump in on this, and then I'll take it away from there.
All right. Do we still need the timer, or are we just?
Yeah, let's try to keep it because it's getting late. Let's all try to wrap it in 2 minutes.
All right. Alan, take it away.
The MTA states the importance of the overnight bus network will increase, but they don't state whether overnight headways will be improved. Most likely it won't. Most of the buses most overnight headways are every 60 or every 75 minutes. That makes transferring impossible between buses and subway transferring difficult. Buses should meet subways where possible at 20-minute intervals, or every other bus, 40-minute intervals at the most. The report is misleading because they're claiming they're improving service spans by adding overnight service on some routes. And they give, like they said, the B49, but the B49 only doesn't run between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. So they're only adding 2 trips. They're not providing overnight service on a route that doesn't have an overnight service. And they're taking the overnight service away from the B68 for those 2 hours. So all they're really doing is flipping the service between routes, and they make it sound like they're adding more routes with overnight service. And they're not. They should show what the overnight service headways will be under the proposal, and they're not showing that. Now, on my plan, I developed a separate overnight network that has fewer routes and altered routes, but all the bus routes are running at either 20 minutes or 40 minutes to meet selected subway lines. So the question is, why isn't the MTA willing to invest in better overnight service when they state the overnight network is going to get more important in the future? That's just one of the report's many contradictions.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Mr. Camp, are you still there, Mr. Camp, or you left?
I think he left. I'm not seeing him in the list.
Okay, what's his name? David Kuffenberg. Did you want to jump in? Because David also has been an advocate for almost 7 years, and I'm sure he has something to say about night owl bus service. Buses is like he does everything on buses. Did you want to jump in, David Kuffenberg?
Sure, thank you. What I would say is about full is definitely the B53 that they're proposing. They are proposing it to operate 24/7, 365. Whether that will be good for the public is up in the air. But I also think about the B25 and how they're cutting it back. In my opinion, that's wishful thinking that people are going to take the subway. I mean, let's face it, the B25 has second highest ridership in Brooklyn between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. Yet it still runs every 79 to 80 minutes frequency. I think that not only should the B25 operate at least every 40 minutes, I also think the B65 should also run overnight service to relieve congestion on the B25. But that's just my opinion.
All right, thank you. We're gonna go to Carl Pereira.
Yeah, I think that the overnight bus service is needed, like a night owl service. Like they did during COVID, they had a few night owl bus services that the MTA ran throughout the various areas of Queens and Brooklyn. I thought that was a good idea when they did it. I think they need to bring that back and take a closer look at that. Regarding the B25 route, if cutting it back to Franklin Avenue, like somebody mentioned, there's no connection from downtown Brooklyn to Dumbo with another route. That's the only route that goes there is the B25. Years ago, I remember the B41 used to go up there to Dumbo. So I think that cutting that route back in the middle of the night is going to affect people that needs to go up there. It may not. The MTA may believe that not many people go to Dumbo at night, but I'm not sure. I'm not too familiar. I know that there's a lot up there, a lot of residential housing, I think. So I don't think they need to cut that off. So I think the MTA needs to look at night owl bus service and it does provide a certain level of frequency of safety. I think certain people are afraid to take trains at night, and they would prefer having the night owl bus service and more frequency in the middle of the night. Thank you.
Christopher?
Well, for starters, I'm going to add this. Some of us do have good points, but we also got to realize that some of the routes in Brooklyn that they got to remember near hospitals, senior centers, they have those rehab centers. They still need to run in areas where people can travel. For example, like the 82 bus where they're taking away to Coney Island. Now it's only going up to where it's right now part-time, part terminating at 26th Avenue, 838. That needs to stay where it is because during late nights at midnight or 1 in the morning, you have people using that bus. The other lights that they want to claim they're going to run, but they got to remember that people who go to work like 3 or 4 in the morning, or some of us who do go to board election during the election times, they need to make sure those buses are running because there are times they're missing. As our representative union agree with me that some of the buses at late night, they are missing because the driver is not available or out sick. But things that we got to remember that if you're going to use these buses, we got to make sure, especially if buses under Broadway running, we need to make sure that that bus is running, but doesn't need to run like every 20 minutes, needs to run like if it's at midnight or 1 in the morning, run every 40 minutes or 45 minutes. So therefore we don't see the rush and the runs. But a lot of these need to be close attention to every route, that what lines are doing very well, what lines we don't need to run a certain time.
So I'm going to take it away because I have a lot to say about overnight bus service. You need a bus route going from Lower Manhattan that runs down Broadway, like the M55 route. Then it goes in the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. When it comes out of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, it starts to make local stops all the way to Bay Ridge. You need a bus like that, especially from like 12:45 at night to about 5 o'clock in the morning, because the R train is very unreliable. We've gotten so many complaints about the R train, the D train, and there should be another bus route that runs similar like to the other route that ran down 9th Avenue, then it goes down Canal Street, then it goes on the Manhattan Bridge, and then it runs via the A&C line all the way up to Broadway Junction. You need something like that. And this is something I'm very upset with the MT. They have not even done this with Queens. The problem is the Q32 doesn't run all night. It doesn't. And under this redesign plan, they have the 16 running all night, but you need a special express night owl bus service. Like you need a bus like the Q89, so this is a Brooklyn bus redesign. So let me focus on Brooklyn, but you need at least 2 or 3 night owl bus routes.
No, you're right, Tom.
Or what they should do is for the Sim 13, the Sim 13C that goes to Staten Island at night, because that runs 24 hours, have it make like 2 stops in Brooklyn when it comes off the bridge. This is ridiculous. The fact that they don't have special overnight dedicated night owl bus routes in a big city like New York City is embarrassing for the MTA. So the MTA is trying to do this redesign and nickel and save and nickel and dime, I should say, and it's ridiculous. People are not happy with these bus redesigns. I'm not happy either, so I'll just leave it at that. Let's move on to the next panel.
Charlton, this is Chris. Can I add one thing that I just want to add what you're saying about the Manhattan Bridge? They should still run a bus. The original bus that ran on the Manhattan Bridge was the B51. It'd be better if any other buses are running and going into downtown Brooklyn to connect the local buses. It should be more, the expressway should run over the Manhattan Bridge, because then you can make a stop at Fulton Street, like what they did with those special buses they ran.
At least have something going over the bridge at night. There's times from NYU, I've had to walk from New York University all the way to Atlantic Terminal over the Manhattan Bridge overnight. Yes. And it's a horrible walk, it's.
And just for the record, it's better if you use the Manhattan Bridge better, because it will give, yes, it was the M99 bus that did have different number. There was different M99s, because remember in Brooklyn, we had 2.
The B99.
There was a B99, M99, because remember the 99s were only running when the subways were not running between the hours of 1 to 5 because they were cleaning it and disinfecting it. And we got to remember that, as a reminder to a lot of people, if you want those buses to run, you really got to advocate for those.
Yeah. All right. So let's keep it moving. Let's go to the next one. I think the next one's the last one. Right,
I think
Jack?
it's the fifth one. I think there was another one that you did want to cover, but speaking of express buses, that's where
Yes, we need to talk about express buses. And I was hoping Mr. Kemp was still going to be with us because this is a hot button issue. But I think he
Jonathan,
left,
can I go
right?
first? Jonathan, this is Chris. Can I go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because normally I don't go first, but this one I have to be very clear.
Yeah, but
The way-
Chris, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, can I?
I mean, I know you're like explaining to us, but I just wish more people from the New York City Transit Riders Council and, all the other councils were here today. But I mean, yeah, go ahead, Chris, take it away.
I'm not here as Transit Riders Council today, but it's duly noted and they're listening. But I want to let's focus on this express bus. Let's get reality. The issues are more on the other two routes. There are right now I'm going to say the present buses, the X27, 37, the 28 and 38. The problem is they want to have three different kind of buses, like where the Spring Creek Depot comes out of for three different buses. One goes to Lower Manhattan, one goes to Midtown, and then the third one goes to both of them, which I'll be honest with you, it's going to cause a problem either way, because the community who lives in Coney Island not going to have any express bus service. And there is still an issue going on today getting the express buses to come back to normal routes. For example, the X29 was the original cut in 2010. They have not come back. And that used to end right outside Walpets and Trump, but at a Stillwell Terminal. You have the 28 and 38 during part times go to Coney Island West 37. They don't want them to run there. There is a big issues in those areas. Bay Ridge is still going to have their buses. That's not changing. But the issues are going to be is Coney Island. The communities in Coney Island are not happy about it because it's going to be more now. People have to transfer to the B64 bus, which is not going to help. We need the 82 bus to run to Coney Island, and it's going to be an issue. So there is a lot of concern issues, and they're claiming there's low ridership. The problem is it's the equipment that those two buses comes out of Omaha Park Depot. So we do need to watch what we see in this.
And yeah, as far as the express bus cuts, it's really the worst of the redesign. And we are going to be hosting another town hall in March. We're going to wait for all the MT meetings to finish, and then we're going to do the closeout, the final one. And we are going to have some express bus service advocates on here. I'm just angry with what they're doing with the buses in Mill Basin and also in Sheepshead Bay. This is just horrible. And a bus redesign should not have any service cuts. There should be more express bus service, not less.
I think the major change to express bus service is cut in the span of service and eliminating of weekend service. That's the biggest changes they're proposing for express bus service. And both of those shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, but Alan, even in the evening, if you want to go from Sheepshead Bay to Manhattan, there's no more reverse service into the city now on weekdays. There's only AM peak service out of Brooklyn into Manhattan, and then the regular pickup service from Manhattan back to Brooklyn. So before, years ago, you could board the BM3, BM4 at like 7 p.m. in the evening in Sheepshead Bay and go to Brooklyn. Now you can't do that anymore.
You mean to go to Manhattan?
I'm sorry, go to Manhattan. I apologize. Yeah,
which is ridiculous because the bus is making the trip anyway. So why should you be making it without passengers when it could have passengers?
I think the routing has to be improved. Either the Ocean Avenue, and then it makes all those stops back to Midtown. What they should do is have like an express Brooklyn bus. And I didn't really see that in the plans where they use the same 23rd Street approach like the Staten Island buses do.
Charlton, this is Chris. The one thing you got to be on, if you're talking about the BM 1, 2, 3, and 4, The difference is the one proposal is they were splitting some of them to go remaining on Avenue L and make a left on Coney Island Avenue. But the problem is as we talk today, all four of them do run on Ocean Avenue, and then they split up around K up to like the MB3 bus stays all the way down to X, and then goes to loop around Sheepshead Bay until it gets to outside of Manhattan Beach. That's the community, and especially Mill Basin, have no complaints about their buses. It's just that their timing is the issue. The timetable they have is more the problem. But
because they don't give them enough running time to do that trip.
That part I agree with you. But listen, what I'm trying to say is, as Alan said it correct too. The issue is also right now the community in Coney Island. It's going to get worse because if they all don't want to take a subway, they don't have an express bus in Coney Island. They have to then take two other buses just to get to the express bus. It's going to be more ridiculous.
I understand. I mean, this is where the elected officials need to come in, because a lot of people pay, and this is the thing, transit is about equity. Everyone deserves better service. And I've heard this thing from Riders Alliance and from other groups where they've said, oh, the express buses use too much subsidies. You know what? That's bull, because the people who use the express bus, they're paying $7.50 to board. It's a lot of money. And, they're really not getting the service they deserve. Let me tell you, years ago, when the express bus was $3 or $4, you had heavy ridership. The reason why nobody's using, people are turned off by the express bus service is because it runs hourly. And then the other part is the fare is so expensive.
Well,
And
express bus service originally was twice the standard fare, but they've increased express bus fares much at a higher rate than the regular fare. So instead of being twice the standard fare, it's almost like 3 times.
Right. Because I remember growing up as a kid, it was $4.50, then it went down to $3.50. Remember in the 90s? And then people started riding the express bus. It was like water. The buses, the service was wonderful in Brooklyn. And then now look at it. It's crazy.
And also, Charlton, we got to remember the original Coney Island Avenue Express bus, which was the X29. That is not even in the proposal, or if it's not coming back. And that's one thing that the community still wants that. But they want a express bus to terminate at Warbett's and Trump houses, but not during all times, only during rush hour. The people who want to go to work. Other people don't even want to go to Manhattan now lately anymore because of not because of COVID, because of safety now. And they're not even talking about subways now. They're concerned of safety on the express buses, because the problem is are they going to show up, the express bus? There are times the buses have equipment issues, and this is coming out of Omar Park Depot. They're not coming out of Spring Depot. Used to be in the 3 express buses, the 29, 28, and 27 came out of Omar Park, and they still have equipment issues at that depot.
No, I understand that. But yeah, take it away, Alan. I'm sorry.
Charlton, wasn't one of the topics service cuts? Was that on the list?
Yeah, express bus service cuts.
No, I thought the local bus service cuts also.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That was the 6th one, right? Jack,
okay.
I'm sorry. Next one. Yeah, let's go to that now. I'm sorry.
Of course, the MTA is calling this an improvement, and I made a list of about 40 different service cuts.
All right, so 1 minute. Hold that thought, Alan.
Yeah,
Jack,
so
take it away.
I'm going to get up our last topic, and I think this definitely has to do with what we were sharing earlier, considering
for those of you
considering that whole initiative by those organizations that shall not go nameless. This is what we're going to be talking about next.
Oh, wow. You saved the best for last. So those of you who are listening, those diehards who are still on the live stream, this is the part where it gets fun, guys. Yep. Who wants to go first? I guess you want to go first, Alan. Take it away, Alan.
Yeah. Well, the MTA is claiming that this redesign is a service improvement or reallocation of service. If it's not service cuts, what they need to do is show us what the existing bus hours and bus miles are, and what the proposed bus miles and bus hours are. They're deliberately not showing us that information because they're providing less service under the proposal. Here are just a few of the service cuts that I came up with just from going through the proposal. They're eliminating the B42. They're cutting the eastern end of the B4 by Voorhees Avenue, and they're eliminating service to the Beach Haven houses near Ocean Parkway. The B6, they're cutting service to Caesar's Babies Shopping Center. The B13 is no longer serving the General Post Office. Instead of extending the B14 to Cross Bay Boulevard to improve interborough access and give it a transfer to the Q52 and 53, they're cutting the eastern end of the B14. And we already discussed what they're doing with the B15. They're cutting the JFK service. The B16, they're not straightening it, but they're moving it to 60th Street where there's more traffic than 56th and 57th Street, which was why the community was against it the other two times it was proposed. The B25, they're cutting night service. Their new B27 on Smith and Court Street to replace the B57 doesn't really go anywhere. It's going to run every 20 minutes and no one's going to use it. And then they're going to, and in a year from now, they'll say it wasn't successful and they're just going to eliminate it. The reason they don't eliminate it now because people would protest, but then they'll say, see, we tried it and it didn't work. Of course it didn't work because it's running every half an hour and it's not connecting any places where people want to go. They said they're improving interborough access, but they're cutting the Metropolitan Avenue portion of the B38. I already mentioned the B44 SBS will no longer serve the nursing homes where there are many workers who live in Crown Heights who use that bus. The B46 we said was cut on Broadway north of Flushing Avenue. The B48 Lorimer Street service is going to be replaced by the B69, which doesn't run as often. It runs like every half an hour. The B49 won't be serving Manhattan Beach, and they're eliminating the B49 Limited. The B53 along Broadway is going to parallel the J train, which people don't need another service paralleling the train. They need what's there now. But they're limiting part of the B46 and the Q24 just to save money. The B57 will be, as I said, will be replaced with the 27 along Smith and Court. It's no longer going to be serving Red Hook. Where is the analysis that shows that more people will be better served by extending it to Jackson Heights? They're not showing that. The B61, they're cutting service between Bottle Pritchard Square and 19th Street. They're moving the B62 from Manhattan to McGinnis. Manhattan is a commercial street. McGinnis is not. They probably think McGinnis is faster, but when after DOT removes a lane and puts in a bike lane and adds buses, McGinnis is going to become a parking lot. They tried cutting B64 Howard Avenue service in 2010, and they had to put it back, and now they're cutting it again and replacing it with the B4 on Stillwell, which is going to take away service in Beach Haven houses. The B65, they're moving from Bergen to Atlantic and Park Slope, and that's only going to increase the service gap. And the reason they're not bringing back the B71 and having it and extending it through the Battery Tunnel to go to Manhattan is they know it would be too successful. They would never be able to get away with 30-minute service. You would need 5 or 10-minute service, and they don't want to provide the service, so therefore they're leaving the service gap and not bringing back the route. They're splitting the B60 into 2 routes. I'm not even sure why they're doing that. They're not even explaining it. The B67, they're cutting the service to the Navy Yard. And
Alan, let me chime in with the B60 split. The reason why is Wilson Avenue is a heavy truck route, and all the things that DOT tried to remedy, it has not worked.
Is any of that explained in the report?
Unfortunately, no.
Well,
But
that's the
Unfortunately, there is some discussion on the DOT end, because in DOT, there's been some delays on the B60 bus because they do get stuck in 2 sections. Rockaway Avenue when they're going in the Brownsville zone and going towards Williamsburg. Because there are times I'm always on that 60 and it took me almost 3.5 hours.
Okay.
And they don't even make it to Williamsburg. They have to discharge the bus, and I have to wait for the other one behind it to switch.
I agree with Greg Amadas that the B69 needs to be put back on 8th Avenue and Preston Park West. Right now, they have the B67 and the B69, and each of them are going to be running at every 20 minutes. Before, if you're waiting on 7th Avenue, you could take either one to go to downtown Brooklyn, but now they're routing the B69 to Williamsburg. So they're really devastating service from 7th Avenue to downtown Brooklyn. The B67 used to run every 5-10 minutes. Now it's running like every half an hour. And then they wonder, why is the patronage, where did the patronage go? Well, you cut the service, you're going to cut the patronage. The B82, they're cutting, won't go to Coney Island anymore. And the B83 needs to be straightened along Pennsylvania Avenue like they're doing. But the only reason it was moved to Van Sicklen was in 1975, East New York complained that they had no north-south service. They wanted a new north-south service between Pennsylvania and Fountain Avenue. And the MTA says, no, we can't, it will cost us too much money. So we're going to reroute the B83 to Van Sicklen. No one wanted it, but the community reluctantly accepted it to partially fill the service gap. Now, by moving it back to Pennsylvania, which is a good idea, they need to have a new route from Jamaica Avenue to East New York and Spring Creek between Pennsylvania and Fountain, but that they're not doing.
All right, so yeah, let's we're going over on time. So I mean, I just wanted to say something about better buses, if I can jump in. This is a thing that Riders Alliance is throwing out, and Transportation Alternatives, Strap Hangers Campaign. Don't get me wrong, guys. We all want better buses. We all do. But the problem is, if we're going to have better buses, we cannot just eliminate bus stops, right? And change routes and just say it's better buses. We have to work on the conditions that are causing the delayed and bad buses. And what is that? Better scheduling, obviously. We need bus lanes. We need, when a bus comes to the red light in other countries, it automatically turns green. They had that on the BX12 SBS when it first started in the Bronx. And then all of a sudden they took it away. It was crazy. I couldn't understand the logic of that. And I'm sure Alan remembers that when that was launched. I don't know if he was there around that time. But better buses means you have to hire more bus drivers. You have to have working equipment that works. And you have to have better bus tracking, meaning the GPS on the buses. Because right now, if you take out your phone, you can look on MT bus time and see most of the time where the bus is. My thing is, you have dispatchers in the depots. Why are they letting the buses bunch up? No, they should have they should have technology to space the buses out. I know Nassau County Express now has a new device where it tells the bus driver if they're late or if they're early. Why can New York City Transit get technology like this?
Charlton, if I can interrupt, they do have the technology. That technology is called Bus Trek. They can see where every bus is at any given time and how many people there are on the bus. The problem is when buses are late and buses are bunched, they're not taking any preventative action to unbunch the buses. That's the problem. And they don't have enough people assigned to the task. There used to be like 600 bus dispatchers. The first thing they did in the 1960s and 1970s was they cut the bus dispatches, they cut maintenance, and they cut service. The whole road operations is like 20 people for the entire city. How could 20 people possibly keep 4,000 buses on time? It's an impossible task. All they can do is put out fires where there's a complaint, they solve that complaint. That's no way to run the bus system.
Most of the dispatchers now are responding to bus driver assaults, breakdowns, and all that other stuff.
Okay, let me just say one more thing. The B4 that runs along Emmons Avenue goes up to Sheepshead Bay Station and then comes back to the rest of Emmons Avenue. I was the one who designed that route. And one of the reasons I made it like that, I figured if two B4 buses are coming together and they're late, one bus could discharge the passengers. If anybody who wants to go to the station can get on that bus, get on the other bus, and the bus that's late could easily make up 10 minutes by skipping the subway station and go straight along Emmons Avenue, and the bus would be back on time. But I can't tell you how many instances I've seen two B4 buses. First of all, they run every 15 minutes. So when you see two buses together, you know there's no bus for half an hour. And both those buses go around, make the loop around to the subway station. Well, one bus can easily make up to 15 minutes by bypassing the subway station. Little things like that, they're not doing.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
mean,
they're all bunched. A lot of times the buses leave the terminals bunched. So how are they
This
going
is
to straighten
something-
out on the route if they leave the terminals bunched?
This is something that I'm going to bring up, and I know we're planning to have a discussion with the president of New York City Transit. I spoke to management today, and I have a lot of concerns. I'm very upset right now. Forget about the redesign. Just the regular service right now is a disaster. Like the Q32, they had 4 Q32s together and no bus for an hour because there was no traffic.
One more point. They were supposed to open up a new bus command center in East New York in 2019. It got delayed because of COVID, and it's already 2023, and the command center still hasn't opened up yet. Why?
It is open.
It's
Alan,
open?
Alan, this is Chris. Yeah, it is open because Andrew Albert was already there. They did the opening and they did tested it because when they did.
When did it open?
Around the fall of 2022.
Okay, we'll see if bus service improves because of it.
Well,
or not.
the only thing I can tell you is that the only thing I'm gonna say they still have to work on, and I agree what you're saying is, if you see on Avenue U, I'm gonna use the B3 for a better example. When you see
The B3 is horrible with bus bunching. Don't even get me started with Avenue U.
but let me say this to Al. He knows what I'm gonna say. If you see four B3s, right? You don't even see them communicate. But when I see 68 buses having an issue because if the Q and B train is out, then they communicate with them, telling them, okay, stop where you are. This bus behind you is, I want that bus behind you discharged so you can take those customers. And I'm like, oh, nice to see their communication coming in. But again, it's sometimes they do that, sometimes they don't. And I agree with you about the B4 bus because if I see 3 B4s and I'm looking, I'm like, why do I need all 3 of them going to the train station? One of them could shoot up and take the space. It's like telling the 3 Stooges, spread out. It still needs to be some adjustments. And when Darrell was there that time as president, he was the worst of the worst because he really claimed he was going to fix buses. He didn't do nothing.
Right. I mean, that's a whole other situation. But I think even though the new bus command center is open, the buses still don't have the new tablet devices on their console that tells them if they're running early or late. That's a technology by Clever Devices.
It
They don't
depends
have
on the
that.
vehicle, Charlton. As a reminder, remember, some of the buses, there are some newer ones that do have it. Some have not been put in yet. You gotta, it depends which depot we're talking about. I know-
There's new buses I've been on that have the old phones, the old Motorola phones in them. But anyway, so let's not get side paneled, but better buses, you know, Betsy going around from Riders Alliance saying, we want better buses. You know, it also requires funding, which means that, you know, we need funding from the government officials. We need bus lanes that actually work. Half the bus lanes in the city don't even work. Don't even get me started. The bicycles are cutting the buses off. I mean, it's horrible. You know, it's just horrible. And okay, it's time for me to finish. All right, I've said enough. As you can see, guys, this is how we do it at Passengers United. We have these lively, heated discussions. Hope you guys are enjoying this discussion.
Jonathan, if it's my turn, I just want to say on better buses, the one thing that we definitely need to work on better buses is to make sure that bus stops are that when they see a wheelchair, walker, or baby stroller, they need to remind the bus has to come to the curb. And at the same time, we have to make sure that DOT is making sure that proper signages are up at the stops because they do handle that, as well as the shelters. And I hope to see when these better buses are running, which I'll hold my breath to it, which is never going to happen, is on-time performance, which we all know that's never going to happen in the city or any borough, any bus that's going to another borough or the express bus. Only thing I'm going to say is if we want better buses, we have to advocate strongly on every single route in the
Chris, believe me, I have. I'm in communication with MTA.
Charlton, I'm not talking about you, Charlton. We're talking
No,
about
but
people
even
here.
the problem with, and I'm going to say this to the public watching, the problem is when you have an organization like Riders Alliance that has millions of dollars at their disposal, they had 20 people come into Queens and they were telling people that we need better buses. And the problem is they weren't educating people like we are. And so this is the problem. This is why we need volunteers at Passengers United. And, we need to confront the MTA and tell the MTA stop rolling out the red carpet for Riders Alliance. Because, my thing is we shouldn't be putting neighborhood and neighborhood, on each other, because one part of Brooklyn is getting better bus service under this plan. Other parts of Brooklyn are losing their bus service. And like Mr. Kemp said, and like Alan said, this is a problem, so we have to keep pushing and pushing, and we cannot give up, people. We cannot.
Charlton, can I finish what I was really trying to say? Because since I do go I live in Brooklyn, but there's one thing I want to remind. One thing that if we want better bus service in the borough of Brooklyn, let me tell you, the issue is going to be still is if we want better bus service, we have to advocate for not just, getting the more buses and everyone paying their fare, but we do need to remind our officials that we need updated bus vehicles, updated sidewalks, updated bus stops. And all I'm going to say is, as an advocate for doing this for many years, we have to work together on this.
Wait a minute, Alan, you were trying to get a law passed about bus lanes in the city?
My personal opinion is that we have enough bus lanes in the city. The only reason they're increasing bus lanes, it's not to help the bus passenger. It's so they can raise revenue from the people who violate the bus lanes.
No, wasn't it something you were trying to get passed in the state legislature?
They've had a bus lane on Livingston Street for like 30 years, and it's never been a bus lane. So what's the use of having it? Where they need a bus lane is they need a bus route they could put a bus route from Sheepshead Bay to Rockaway on the Belt Parkway, and they could put a bus lane on the shoulder where it's not going to affect traffic. They put a bus lane on the center portion of Kings Highway, which totally destroyed Kings Highway. If you're in a car, instead of doing 25 miles an hour, you're now doing 10 or 15 miles an hour because of the bus lane. You can no longer switch between the service road and the main road. And according to DOT's own numbers, before they put the bus lane on Kings Highway, the average speed of the buses was 21 miles an hour. The speed limit is 25. The buses couldn't go any faster with a bus lane, but they put the bus lane in anyway and just made driving more difficult. I don't think bus lanes are the answer. And Riders Alliance, their idea of better buses is 6-minute service, which is also ridiculous because first of all, who's going to pay for it? And not every route needs 6-minute service. What we don't need is 20 and 30-minute service. But they're asking for a ridiculous thing like 6-minute service, which is insane. 6-minute service is like saying a medium suit will fit everybody, and it won't. One size does not fit all. They don't know anything about transit, and as you said, they have all the support, and they're getting all this publicity. And according to them, better bus services, removing all the bus stops, putting bus lanes in, and having buses run every 6 minutes. That's their definition of better buses.
You know what I forgot to mention to the panel, to all of you listening, and I'm sorry, guys, my mind's all over the place. You know what I forgot? I spoke to the head of bus shelters for the company that runs them for the city. They have the contract. So I asked her, why would they support the bus stop eliminations? Because they're going to lose money if there's less bus shelters, right? They'd lose advertising money. And you know what I found out? Every time somebody breaks a bus shelter or damages a bus shelter, or they do vandalism, the city doesn't pay to repair the bus shelter. It comes from the private company has to eat up the cost. So now this is all making sense why they're supporting Riders Alliance. Who's this?
It's
Yeah, let
Chris
me
that
finish.
said, I told you this before.
Right. So this is why, and I want the public to see this. You're waiting for the slowest buses in America. So these bus ads that Riders Alliance had, basically Riders Alliance had to pay for the printing to put inside the bus shelter. However, they were given free advertising space. And that's ridiculous. I'm sorry. And they told me they do this for nonprofit organizations. I mean, you know, and the MTA, and if you look at their funders, which I wanted to post in this video, but I was advised strongly not to do that. But we're going to post it up on our YouTube channel. They're getting funded by private companies and, you know, corporations, and it's just ridiculous. So this is why we're having problems on the ground, all the grassroots advocates, because it's like shoveling snow in a snowstorm. I think let Christopher, you can figure out a better way to describe this. Well, even Alan can.
What do you mean, Scribe? The only thing I'm going to say this very clearly, as I said before, and I know I said this already, that each time a bus shelter gets damaged, it's, you know, it hurts the customers, and it's also been disrupting service for people, because if they have to fix it, the bus has to stop further back all the way. So there is issues that needs to be, you know, addressed. But at the same time, also, if someone, because I'm reading someone's question, if we want more benches, that's DOT, and I just put that in the chat.
Charlton, you know what else? You know what else is ridiculous? Why is the MTA not having in-person meetings? Why are they only doing it virtually? We should be able to confront the MTA, ask questions, and they should be able to answer our questions. With these virtual meetings, all they do when you ask a question, they say, "Oh, submit it on the website," and they never provide any answers. Everybody needs to contact their elected official and to force the MTA to have in-person meetings. You know what the MTA is considering in-person meetings? Stopping people at subway stations and asking them if they want faster buses. That is what they're calling in-person meetings.
It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
It's totally ridiculous.
I agree.
They can't use COVID as an excuse for not having in-person meetings when they're having in-person meetings to introduce Omni.
And you know what's crazy? They have press conferences with Riders Alliance, Transportation Alternatives, and the mayor and the MTA all together without masks on outside. So that thing to me is it's all a bunch of crap. They just don't want to hear from the public. And again, if people from the MTA are watching this, I'm sorry, but it needs to be said. We're frustrated with the way things are going. And, you know, Jano Lieber and the executive leadership at the MTA, y'all need to change the way you do business with the public. We all pay a fare. We're riding your buses. And it needs to be said.
Charlton, this is Chris. The one thing I'm going to agree with Alan also, but I want to add one thing because it's been brought up. If you want an in-person bus redesign, as Alan, you just said earlier, let your elected officials know that you want a town hall with your elected official to host it. There should be
But the problem, Christopher, is the elected officials, they're brainless. They have these public, I've been to these meetings.
Charlton,
and they
don't.
Wait, Chris.
In Brooklyn, but I have to interject you. In Brooklyn, I'm going to interject you right here. Because there are city council members that I can vouch, 5 of them, and I'm only talking about 5 council members, will have a town hall with the MTA, with the community, if everyone wants that. But it's not just one person. It needs to be brought to their local officials. But if no one does that, that's where everyone's just giving up.
Wait a minute. So for the Queens bus redesign, even for tonight's meeting, we called and emailed elected officials. I personally spoke to about 10 or 15 of them. They didn't come tonight. And this is the other problem of it. So, you know, there's been a lot of talk going on now because a lot of these elected officials are up for re-election. And this talk. We're planning some things because this is getting ridiculous. Our bus service throughout the city, we're supposed to be getting better bus service, not fighting for crumbs. And this is what's happening in neighborhoods all across the city, Chris. And
I know, Charlton. I definitely see this, Charlton, and I'm still going to say this again to the community people who are watching this. You want an in-person, go to your elected officials.
I understand that, Chris, but the problem is, what the elected officials do? They have these town halls, and that's it. They don't follow up with them. And the problem is, the reason why we're in this mess with these bad bus redesigns is because the elected officials do not send representatives every month to the board and committee meetings, and they're not persistent and hyperactive on their bus service like we are. And that has to change. There's a few I'd say 2 or 3 elected officials who are on the ball, and I'll give them props. But there has to be accountability. One thing that I feel like in Brooklyn, there's some elected officials and some community boards who are doing a horrible job. Good night, Isaac. Thank you for joining. But yeah, I'll just end it there, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think we need to end it, Charlton, because the bottom line is it's a 3-way street issue. But the problem is if the community doesn't say anything or put their foot into it, it's going to be like this, saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do it. I'll believe it when I see it. That's the main word.
But even the MTA board members, they don't ride the bus. You have even MTA executives, even you have union officials.
Okay.
TWU union officials. Wait, no, it needs to be said.
We're feeling ourselves with something that we already know this. But
but the public watching this forum, they need to understand this. A lot of these union officials, a lot of these elected officials, they don't ride the bus. So Kevin Zhang is joining us. Kevin Zhang is actually an advocate. I know he does a lot of things. Kevin, did you want to say a few words and jump in?
Charlton, can I say something first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Chris made an excellent suggestion about the elected officials hosting town halls. Even if they don't do anything, they'll at least hear all the problems that people have with the redesign. When the MTA had the Queens workshops, it was a joke. And the Brooklyn workshops was also a joke. Because what they do is they divide everybody up in groups of 3 or 4, and they speak to people individually, so you can't hear what anybody else is saying. And that's done deliberately, because if everybody's against something, they don't want you to know that everybody else agrees with you. So when their workshops were in person, they were useless. They didn't get up in front of a room and have everybody listen to them. They broke everybody up into groups of 3 or 4, and the reason they did that, it was when they had the select bus service meetings. They did it the old way, speaking in front of a group, and everybody was yelling that they didn't like it. They didn't want people to know that everybody else agreed with them. So when they did the redesigns, they broke everybody up into groups of 3 or 4, so you couldn't hear what anybody else was saying. And
you're right.
If you have a town hall that city council officials hold, then they'll be able to hear what everybody has to say at the same time.
Right. And one of the things that we're going to suggest when these elected officials have these town halls, the elected officials need to have follow-up meetings, and they need to follow up on all the complaints, because they don't do that. That's where the problem is.
Some do, yet, and Alan's right, some don't. And I can vouch a lot of them in Brooklyn also, some don't. They always say they're going to do it, which is a bunch of SOs, but there are some do. And
but Chris, we're going to be sending people to the PCAC meetings and to the New York City Transit Riders Council meetings. We're going to start sending people in droves.
That's fine, but just do me a favor, Charlton. I'm not here as TRC. I'm going to remind you.
No, I get you. I understand. I'm sorry, but I'm just
if you're going to invite people to the TRC, I understand that. That is their right if they want to attend. But I'll remind everyone, they should be really attending the MTA board and subcommittees. If they cannot be there, put your information. You can go there in person or go virtual. Either way. If you want
but the problem is when you go virtual, we've had problems where we're not called on. that happened to an individual, and I was very
How am I
upset
supposed to
about
know
that.
that, Charlton, if there's a problem with it? You see, that's another problem. If nobody says anything, if there's a problem with it, no one tells anyone, it's called they'll give up.
Because
Charlton,
no,
hold
we're
on.
not giving up. You know me.
Charlton, I didn't say you, Charlton.
Right, right.
You're jumping to conclusion again. Listen what I'm trying to tell you. There are other people that just give up and just go walk away. No. How are we supposed to know if there's a problem? We don't know this.
You do. The PCAC is well aware because I've spoken and
I'm not talking about PCAC, Charlton. I'm talking about other
New York City Transit Riders Council, which is
No,
in
I'm
the
talking
PCAC.
about the MTA board. Let's focus on the board.
But no, wait. No, I'm talking about because the PCAC, the Permanent Citizens Advisory Council, is supposed to represent riders. They're supposed to they should have been here tonight. And I'm not, Chris, I do want to say one thing on Chris. Chris is a very good person. He really cares about ADA and he's very dedicated and he's a true professional. Even though me and him, we have our little disputes, but I want the public watching here tonight to understand what's going on in the city and understand the underlying politics and the racism in transportation that's going on. Because it needs to be exposed. We're very different at Passengers United. We explain it raw, bitter, and to the point. We don't hold back here. We tell it like it is. Right, Alan?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how we do it. And and that's how I'm gonna be. And my vice president, Jack, and I'm sure Jack wants to say something in closing because Jack's been sitting behind the computer. And Jack, we're sorry, Jack. Take it away, Jack, for closing.
Oh no, it's fine. You're spot on.
Okay.
It's really it's really concerning what's been going on, and I think that all the panelists, Alan, Carl, Christopher, Charlton, I think you summed it up quite well.
Yeah. Did anyone in closing, any of the people online want to say something? Because we have 19 participants. Did anyone want to say some closing remarks or something? Because I see we have people here. We have James Moose. We have David. David, you want to say something in closing?
Yeah, I'd like to say that to the MTA, please be honest with the public and go back to the drawing board. That's all I have to say.
Okay, is there anyone else? Ronna Silverbush. We also have Scan Computer 5, Philly's phone.
Yeah, I'll say just really quickly, this is really informative and really important. And I'm just very grateful to you for all the work that you've done and to everybody who spoke tonight for, bringing your expertise to it. I think that this has to be the beginning of the story here and the work that Passengers United can help, everyone do, because I hear a lot of action items that have come out of this on many different fronts, and it would be really meaningful to be able to parse them all out and figure out, what in terms of accessibility, what in terms of equity, there's so many things that have come out of tonight, and it'd be nice to really try to distill it for just people who are not wonks but care because it's their lives. How do we now take this information that's been so beautifully put out here and the voices that have been heard from everybody, the experts and just, Brooklynites, for example, and how do we create action items that are doable by as many Brooklynites and other New Yorkers as possible so that we can actually prevent as much of the bad, mitigate the damage, stem it as best we can, and also maybe even affect some positive change.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. Wow. Thank you so much. And I know you follow us on Facebook and YouTube and you're all over. Thank you. I appreciate that. Jack Nirenberg, I want to give him a shout out because Jack is really, he works so hard. Y'all don't even know. Jack does so much for us. And Jack is our vice president. He's just an excellent human being. He's gone above and beyond anything that any of us could have asked of him. And I just, we're all honored to be here and help the public, but you can hear the frustration in our voices, what we deal with at the MTA on a daily basis, the stuff we deal with. Alan knows what I'm talking about in some context. And, you know, I think one of the things we're going to do coming out of this meeting is we're going to do pop-up visits to bus stops. And we're going to have like cardboard flyers. So, you know, we can have the maximum impact and just talk to the public about these bus stop cuts and maybe try to get them to log on to the MT's website to submit a complaint. And because right now there's no posters on any of the buses about next week's bus redesign. So that is an issue. That is an issue. And I'm sure Alan has something to say about that. And even Christopher. I mean, Chris, why are there no posters on the buses?
Well, for starters, I'm going to say this. We're talking about posters about the redesign. There are some already going up right now on some buses. But at the same time, also that I got to tell you right now, there are some issues on some other depots that are not putting them up, even with the baby stroller thing, because it's taking us to yell at them saying, put it up already. And that's something that's called, if you don't see it, put in your complaint. But as a closing remark, I want to bring up tonight is for everyone that this is one meeting. I hope to see, because I have seen a lot of people in 2019 did attend the redesign. Your voices, your minds, your thoughts. We need that. Everyone you said tonight, it's very important. We need everyone to please try to attend the redesign, or make sure you also, when you do go see your elected officials, and get your fellow colleagues, your friends, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, get their attention and tell them, and even bump into a senior and let the senior centers know that your friends who are maybe at day have programs, at people with disabilities or anywhere, please do your part of communicating them and let them know about this redesign, because we need your thoughts, your ideas. But make sure one thing I'm going to say is some of the buses you see are connecting to an accessible train station. We need some of those ideas because people who do want to travel on subways, and I would say if they do, they need that option. But as Jonathan said earlier, we do need an express bus to stop in downtown Brooklyn to help some people who want to go maybe into Staten Island and they don't want to have to go all the way to Bay Ridge. That's an idea, but put that idea in there. But
in closing,
Jonathan, let me finish because I'm almost done. In my closing, I hope to see everyone attending everything and let your elected officials know. Thank you.
No, I was going to touch on a point you made. Jason wanted a bus that runs from parts of Brooklyn, from South Brooklyn to Amazon, because a lot of employees work at Amazon overnight.
Yeah, he said that already.
And I think we need to support them on that, you know, but Amazon should be paying for its own workers' transport. But at the same time, I mean, there is a bus route there. They have to use public transportation. So it's something we need to help with, you know, and, you know, I'm so proud of everyone who came tonight. Is there anyone that wants to say anything else in closing? Because I see there's people here. Kevin Zhang is here. Did Kevin want to jump in? Because I know Kevin does a lot of activism. James Moose is here. We have Philly's phone. We have Scan Computer 5. So I don't know who these people are. And I think we have some people from the MTA here, disguised under different names, because the MTA said they would be here. So I'm assuming that's probably them. You know, so I just want to thank everyone. Alan Rosen, Paul Pereira. Paul, did you want to say something in closing? If Paul's still with us.
Closing, yes. Yeah, I think this is a good start, and I know the Brooklyn community meetings will be starting soon. So I think if we have a meeting like maybe monthly to go over what's going on and keep abreast of everything with the Brooklyn plan and see if when they release the Queens plan, we can, you know, keep tweaking and fine tuning with working with the MTA and try to improve the plan as best we can. And I think I think we got to give them a chance and to make some improvements. And I thought
Definitely.
I think
And
this
we're
was a good discussion. And we
what
got-
we're gonna try to do is have hybrid meetings. We're gonna have hybrid meetings like we did in College Point, because that was a huge success. We had over 80 people over there. And tonight, I think we broke the record tonight because the MT's virtual meetings only had 15 people in their first meeting, if I'm correct, right, Jack? And
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we definitely, this was definitely a success.
yeah, so I just want to thank Christopher. You know, me and Christopher, we argue and stuff, but he knows we both love transportation. We're both passionate about what we're doing, and I'm going to continue molding him into a better leader. That's what I'm going to say. And Paul, and Alan too. Alan is a wonderful person. Alan does so much. He's written editorials. Alan, did you want to say something in closing or?
Yes, I would just like to ask people again, if you haven't read my article on brookliner.com, BKLYNER.com, please do that, because there's the link to the petition in there. We only need 30 more people to have 2,600 signatures. We're sort of stalled at 2,570. So if you can share the link on social media, we really need those last 30 signatures. And there's also a link to my plan, which I devised in 2019. I've been told that it fills all the service gaps, unlike the MTA's plans. If you see anything in my plan that you like, tell the MTA you want them to include that part in their proposal, or they should use my entire proposal. Whatever you feel, but please look at it.
Alan, where is this? So you did your own proposal on the Brooklyn bus redesign.
I came up with my own redesign plan. It's linked in my article in BKLYNER.com. If you go to that link, the first story you'll see is my article. Just click on the buses and you'll see the link to my plan and the link to the petition and the link to the MTA's plan also.
Is it possible that you can post that on the Passengers United Facebook page? Because all of you joining can join our Facebook page.
I posted it many times. It's been posted on the Passengers United page.
Oops. Okay, I'm sorry. Then maybe I'm missing the point. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll have to check again.
He said that earlier. Like, I think this is now the 6th time he said it already. It's on there.
All right, Christopher. Okay, we get the point. All right, so I think we're done with the meeting. We want to thank everyone for coming. We also want to thank News 12 The Bronx, because they've been here with us. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. We're going to try to do these meetings. I guess the next one will probably be maybe in a month or so, or maybe we'll try to do one. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep you all posted. So definitely stay tuned with Passengers United. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. So definitely stay tuned.
Oh, and Jack, people are asking, can we keep the chat? Will the chat be in YouTube, or is there a way we can save and create a transcript of the chat?
Oh, we're definitely saving the chat. There's no question about it.
Okay, great. Except that thing where that guy made those nasty comments.
Well,
yeah. And those of you who submitted information, we're going to go through your emails. Those of you who registered to speak, do we have their emails?
Unfortunately, and this I take responsibility for, I did forget to include that in today's meeting, but we do have the names.
Okay, great. So this is going to be, you all will be able to see this on YouTube. We're going to have it on our channel, and we're definitely going to share it with our social media. So I guess on behalf of all of us at Passengers United, thank you, Jack Nienberg, for all your help and everything. I just want to thank all the panelists, our entire community for coming out. And I also want to thank some of the MTA reps who came tonight, who are undercover in the participants. Thank you as well for coming. And I'm sure Riders Alliance and the other organizations came, so it is what it is. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys. Good night.
Very- So once again, thank you so much for attending and participating. This meeting was live streamed on YouTube, and the recording of that will then be available after we. So thank you so much once again. Have a great night. Stay safe.